Well,
Hello. It's my site now.
hey everyone, welcome to GameFace episode 292 on Sifted Games at sifted.net. We still haven't got the one shot for me fixed. I tried, it worked all morning, and then literally right before we went live, the camera stopped feeding into the TriCaster. I don't know what's going on there, but I will say this, we do have this. We've got your chat back for episode 292, so that part's good. And Matt's one shot is still looking good. What's up, Matt?
Yeah, it was very moody.
It is.
It's like the Batman.
The dramatic lighting, absolutely. Did you go see the new Batman movie?
I did.
What'd you think?
I surprised myself by liking it a lot.
Oh, yeah?
It's too damn long, and I gave up about 2/3 of the way through trying to figure out how many acts it had. Because it's basically a streaming show that you binge for 3 hours.
Oh, really? Is that kind of how it's structured?
It's kind of episodic, yeah. But I liked it a lot. Like, it's like it all kind of worked. I do think the Riddler plot is very today. It's very, he's a streamer and he's got like followers and he's inciting them to like do horrible shit and things like that. But like it's like he's like a conspiracy theorist. The problem is I think it's a little irresponsible to make the conspiracy theorist villain correct. Like, he's wrong in how he went about it, but he's right that the conspiracy is a thing. And I feel like that's probably not the message we need to send right now. But in terms of, like, portraying Batman and Pattinson's performance, that's all really good. Like, the very beginning of the movie has some of the best Batman stuff ever put on film, just in terms of kind of capturing, like, how afraid everybody is of him and how, like, the intimidation factor and stuff of
that's cool.
What he tries to create.
That's where Batman, I think, is at his best.
Yeah, well, that aspect of how he presents himself is actually a big part of his character arc and kind of coming to terms with what that means about him. It is the first Batman movie to call out the idea that maybe a rich guy dressing up as a bat and beating the shit out of poor people is not the solution to crime. And they get around to that in a couple of interesting ways. I'm very interested to see the sequel, which is obviously going to happen because it made a ton of money.
Yeah, it did very well, right? It's kind of like the first post-pandemic film, right?
No, that would be Spider-Man.
How did Spider-Man do?
Spider-Man made like over $1 billion.
Oh, okay.
Spider-Man
I didn't realize it had done that well.
Spider-Man is like the number 3 opening something of all. Like, Spider-Man set records for non-pandemic times.
Oh wow, I didn't realize that.
Oh yeah, Spider-Man. And I called that back when the trailer first ran with, I think, Mortal Kombat or whatever, one of the first movies I saw, after the vaccinations happened, back in like March or April. The pop for that trailer in the theater, I turned to my friend and I was like, that's gonna be the first $1 billion movie. Post lockdown. That's, I know, sure enough, people love the Spider-Man. So I would, as much as a film fan and a film snob as I can be, I would like to note to the people who are complaining all the time about superhero movies and how I go real cinema is it. Well, the next time you're watching your real cinema movie in a movie theater, remember that you're in that movie theater because Spider-Man and Batman saved it.
It's kind of true.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, superhero movies have kind of saved. Even before the pandemic.
Sure. Also, 140 movies come out every year, and maybe 6 of them are superhero movies.
They just so happen to be the ones that people want to watch.
The ones people want to watch and the ones that are advertised. But if you know what you're going to do, what you want to see, you can find. It's just like games.
I actually,
it's like games are more than, like, I don't know, whatever the latest Sony exclusive is and Assassin's Creed. But you wouldn't know that by watching NFL ads, would you?
Yeah. I just talked about this on this morning's Good Morning Gaming. And actually, I'm curious to get your take on this very quickly. One thing that's really kind of surprised me over the years is how comic book characters, things that I really liked when I was a kid, and honestly I was made fun of for liking comic books back then, and I was a nerd or whatever, an outsider or whatever they called me. How interesting is it that all these people who used to make fun of people like us for liking comic books now have just kind of been assimilated into this market of people who just now all of a sudden love superhero stuff? How do you think that was accomplished? Was it marketing? Was it just a shift of mindset?
It is marketing, but part of it is because the people who are in charge of the marketing were people like us.
Okay, so we grew up
Yeah.
and got jobs of power,
and then the marketing and the culture then informed the people who didn't like it before that this is a thing to do.
Okay,
and some of it's the quality of it. I remember when the first X-Men movie came out. I was working at a 24-hour fitness, and it was like the day before it came out, July 4th, 2000. And I says, like, who's going to see X-Men tomorrow? And everyone in that fucking room was like, who would want to see that nerd shit? And it's just like,
yeah,
I'm like, really? You don't want to see like Halle Berry and Patrick? And they're like
really? Halle Berry's in a superhero?
And like by the next X-Men movie, I was like, oh my god, Wolverine! And like 3 months later, they were calling the biggest, like muscliest superhero looking trainer in the gym Wolverine. You know, like it's just
it's pretty crazy how it's happened.
Yeah, I mean, it's like
I'm sure you remember what it was like when we were kids.
Yeah. I mean,
like we were.
Yeah, I mean, I never got much heat on that stuff.
Like
really.
none of the dudes on my basketball team were reading comic books on the bus like I was. Like
there were some on our team. Like I don't know. I got a little lucky in that regard, and partly because when I was a kid, I was so kind of like blind to meanness. That like I didn't always.
I'm kind of that way.
I didn't always understand that like someone was being mean to me until I mean, they were trying to hit me. That was different. But
right.
But I was like, they're going, and like after a while, you realize like they're not really interested in Godzilla. They're just trying to make you sound stupid.
Right.
And I was like, well, I don't care.
I still feel like that happens to me a lot. There's a lot of times where I give people the benefit of the doubt, and I just am like, no, they're not being a jerk, and they are being a jerk. Some people may call it being naive or whatever. I call it trying to look for the good in people instead of the bad.
Yeah. I mean,
the internet could really use a whole lot more of that. Let me tell you.
I mean, I usually pick up on stuff like that fairly quick, but like I found the best way to turn that around is to start asking them to explain what they mean.
Yeah.
Just like when someone tells like a shitty joke or like a racist or a sexist joke, like just act like you don't get it and make them explain why it's funny.
That works a lot.
It's like
because then they have to start really thinking about it, and they're like,
why is it? Well, why is I don't get it? Why is it fun? And like then they have to like explain like the actual stereotype or thing that it's based on, and they like realize they're like, oh,
it's really not funny at all, is it?
Or maybe they do still think it's funny, but they realize it's not something they should admit that they believe.
Yeah.
Which is good enough for me. Just stay quiet.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, I think it's just, I think it was mainly like it became what the mainstream media diet is, and they don't, and they're good. I mean, they got to be good. Obviously people don't just completely mindlessly go see these things. Otherwise, the Zack Snyder DC movies would still be going. But like you make something quality and you make something that makes people care, and like, like, I mean, it worked on me too. I mean, I never cared about the Avengers before.
I mean, I always kind of did, but
I mean, I knew what they were, but I was an X-Men, Spider-Man kid, and Batman. Like, the Avengers were like the embarrassing old heroes that nobody knew what to do with for most of my.
But your mind was open to.
I knew of them,
right? But your mind was just open in general to superheroes.
Yeah. Yeah.
It wasn't something you were closed off to, and a lot of people were.
But I was pretty closed off to the idea of a good Thor movie.
Yeah.
But like, we got a couple of those.
Yeah.
So
that's true.
Who knows?
Yep. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoy Batman. All I really care is if people like stuff and they enjoy it.
I mean, it's so long.
Get some entertainment value.
I did see it at like it was a 10:20 showing, so we got it at like 1:30 in the morning. I think I did like it more than anybody else in my group. Partly that was probably because it was like 1:30 a.m. But like
that changes things.
It's different, but it's coming to HBO Max on April 19th. So even if you don't want to go sit in a theater for 3 hours, you don't have long to wait.
Yeah. I didn't realize that actually. That's quick.
So this 6 weeks theatrical run. That's standard theatrical run these days. But usually you wait.
Used to be there was a big buffer in between.
Yeah, because you wanted people to get built. And now that it's like, nope, just throw it up there. Like
they should. They're doing it the right way now.
Yeah, and it really diffuses the FOMO and wanting to go see it in a theater, which is like good for people who don't want to go out right now.
Yeah.
But I mean, I can get used to that. I mean, Spider-Man's already coming to Blu-ray like next month.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Wow.
Eternals already have Eternals.
Yeah, I haven't seen the new Spider-Man film yet, so
it's so good.
It's gonna work for me. I've heard good things about it. I heard good things about Batman too. It seems like most people like it a lot.
Yeah, I liked it. It's real good. I put it up there in the same. It's not on the same quality as it, but I would put it in the same league as The Dark Knight in terms of a take on Batman.
That's big words.
Obviously, there's no Heath Ledger equivalent here.
Yeah.
But like in terms of like, I like that. I like that version. I like what you're doing there. It's gorgeous, visually gorgeous. Like it might be the best looking Batman movie.
Wow. That's actually one thing that almost all Batmans have gotten right. Yeah, they look good.
I would say Dark Knight Rises doesn't look very good.
It's really dark.
I think it's too bright.
Really? I felt like I was always straining to see stuff in that film.
Dark Knight Rises?
Yeah.
The Bane one?
Yeah.
Like I always feel like I'm just like it's just they're just in a city.
It's very gritty. It's almost like I felt like the color was almost washed out of it. It was almost like grayscale sometimes.
Sometimes a little bit, yeah. Like in the Gotham sections. Yeah.
I still thought that movie looked good though.
I hate Dark Knight Rises.
Oh really?
I think it's a complete fizzle of a finale. I mean, there's not you're hamstrung by the fact that Heath Ledger died, obviously, but like, don't just hand the script to Dick Goyer and let him write bullshit for 2 hours. Like, none of that movie makes any sense.
Yeah.
But no, I think the new one is really good. Also, the music really was the first like musical like theme for Batman that I've liked since Danny Elfman in the original '89 movie. Yeah, really good. Jeffrey Wright's really good as Gordon. Colin Farrell disappears into the Penguin. Like, he is. There's a little bit like it's drawing a lot from like Zodiac and Seven and like procedural stuff. It's a detective story, really. You know, it's definitely a mystery.
I didn't even realize that.
It's definitely a murder mystery.
Okay,
which is good.
I may get the wife to watch it then.
I mean, I'm not saying it makes sense in the end, but like I'm saying it is a mystery thriller. It's not necessarily a superhero thing, just which works really well. You know, it's more of a grounded thing, but. Nah, it's really good. And
that's good to hear.
Pattinson's a good Batman, and I think he'll grow into the Bruce Wayne because part of the point of the movie is realizing that he needs to be Bruce Wayne too,
instead of just being Batman.
Yeah, there's a growth of like, you know, it's like year 2 of being Batman. So he's kind of he's figuring out how to be
Batman.
He's figuring out the work-life balance.
Right,
you know,
right.
like,
That's a good way to put it. Okay, well, here we are for GameFace 292. This episode is pretty much all games. I know it's been a while since we've done an episode like this where we just played a ton of games. I have just been playing like a madman for the last 7 days. I have played 4 games since I last talked to you guys on GameFace. And that's what this show is all about. We're going to talk games today. Before we get going, though, I want to thank people who have subscribed with Twitch Prime. I know there's been a bunch of you. Damn Towel Man, Shane, how old is that shirt? I'm a big drum and bass fan. Actually, so 611 Records was an old house and electronic music record store back in the 90s in Philadelphia.
I swear you've explained this shirt before.
I think I have. It's also, by the way, it's also my mug.
Right.
I keep flipping to your camera for some reason. I'm wrong. I'm sorry. I also have a mug that sits here every episode because my good friend Nigel Richards is the one who owned the record store. And it was one of the top 3 electronic record stores during the whole rave boom back in the early to mid 90s. So some people do know it as drum and bass because the parties that 611 would throw would be techno and drum and bass, but they sold everything. And I went in there and bought house. I'm a house DJ. So anyway, the shirt is actually brand new. My buddy Nigel just decided to reissue the shirts because people like me have lost them because it's been 20 years since the store closed. And so people like me had lost them, and he just went on Facebook and was like, hey, Shane, you want a 611 shirt? I was like, hell yeah. He's like, send me $12, and I did, and he sent it to me. So I had a lot of good times at 611 Records. Going shopping for records every Tuesday, just really shopping for anything on Tuesday when the hot stuff comes out. That's the way games are. Like all pop culture media, for whatever reason, Tuesday is the day.
That was when the shipping happened.
Yep. Yeah. And me and my buddies would go to 611 Records every Tuesday, and you just hang out, talk about whatever events were happening over the weekend, who was DJing where. Hey, here's this track that I found. Listen to it. It was awesome. I just miss all that stuff.
Like the Bare Naked Ladies Brian Wilson song says, drove downtown in the rain 9:30 on a Tuesday night just to check out the late night record shop.
There you go. So I miss it, man. I just miss going to record stores in general. But anyway, thanks for asking, and that's the story. Let's check out some Twitch Prime Minority Games. Thank you for subscribing at Tier 1. Mitch Sikorsky says 45-day window before going to HBO Max. Okay. I know I saw some stuff up here earlier. Oh, iViz, thank you for Twitch Prime. Are there any more? I want to make sure I get you guys in here. Justin Horman, thank you for subscribing at Tier 2. Corey Film, thank you for 100 bits. That's awesome. Johnny Hurricane, how you doing, brother? Thank you for Twitch Prime. Karma Lounge, thank you for Twitch Prime. Don Lionheart, thank you for the bit. You guys are doing awesome. Toast9, thank you for Twitch Prime. And FF8, Master C, thank you. Don Lionheart, thank you. And I think that's really it. Yep, because that's where the chat starts because we finally got the computer back up and working here for this week's episode. So let me get down to the bottom here before we switch away. Rigor Mortis UK got in at the last minute. Thank you for Twitch Prime. You're awesome, man. All right. And I did it again, Matt. I keep flipping you. I think I have the camera numbers wrong in the TriCaster. And it's just muscle memory for me to flip to that camera. I'll try to get it fixed before the end of the show, guys. All right, we're going to kick off the show with the biggest release of the week, and that is Gran Turismo 7. I think it's safe to say that's the biggest release of the week.
Oh, yeah.
It would be in most weeks, and this was actually a good week for game. This whole month is a good week for game releases. There's good stuff all month long. Our shows are going to be excellent for the rest of March. Like I said, we have 4 games we're talking about today, and we're kicking it off with Gran Turismo 7. Matt, how big of a Gran Turismo fan have you been in the past?
Zero.
Like you didn't even like them back in the OG PlayStation?
Back in the day,
PS2?
they were the only game in town, more or less. I mean, I imported the first one from Japan when it first came out. And that was cool, but there's nothing else like it. And then GT2 I thought was a disappointment. Also PlayStation 1, and expanded a bunch of stuff, but the graphics got much worse, and I found it almost impossible to drive in it because the pop-in was so bad. And then I actually bought the PS2 when the bundle with GTA 3 A-Spec came out. And that was fine. I don't remember that game very well.
What, A-Spec?
Yeah.
I remember it was one of the most anticipated games ever up to that point.
Oh, yeah. And
like,
then,
that just doesn't happen with Gran Turismo anymore.
No, the importance of GT back in the day can't be overstated, but now it's barely a radar blip for most people.
Yeah,
racing games just kind of stopped being the benchmark for things.
Yeah.
And then 4, I know I didn't play 6. And I didn't play Sport.
I played Sport.
And I can't remember if I played 5, and I don't remember anything about 4. Like after 3, I just sort of like meh, and then like Forza started happening, and like Forza was just like head and shoulders above everything GT did to me. And
there was actually Metropolis Street Racer was kind of
MSR was
the
really
start.
good.
Yeah,
like that, and like how that melted into Project Gotham Racing on the Xbox. Like. Yeah, like I always preferred that style of even like Need for Speed Underground and Hot Pursuit and stuff was more appealing. I like the arcade stuff more than the sim stuff for the most part, or at least a balance more.
I think it had more. The franchise had more allure when it was the only game in town.
Yeah, because they were the only ones doing this.
Yeah,
and certainly on consoles, there were certainly sims on PC if you were willing to put up with that. But also like Polyphony was the first team to really like go into like the detail of the accuracy of the models and like the physics. They would not put like features in the game because they couldn't do them right, which was unusual for the time.
Yeah.
And frustrating after a while because you're like, just put damage in. Just put damage in the fucking
damage
game.
is still not in this game.
Still not in the game, yeah.
Which is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
I think for a long time it was because
the licensors didn't want to.
No, that's not true.
Oh, really?
That was only one.
The manufacturer.
That was only one manufacturer for one game that wasn't even GT years and years ago, and the fandom has just gamers.
So that has been an urban legend essentially.
Yeah, gamers just pick stupid things up and run with them forever and decide that's the reason.
I don't disagree with that.
The reason is largely because Polyphony was like, if we're going to do damage, we would have to model it down to the smallest dent, and we can't do that without breaking the system.
Because they wanted their attention to detail to be.
They want the attention to detail. They
across.
put in like the camber physics to be as good,
as
equivalent on the damage. And then if they can't do the damage right, that's it. A couple of them, I think like 3 or 4 did a thing where like if you impacted something, it would arbitrarily like slow you down for a second.
People hated that.
Yeah. So like they just sort of gave. I mean, you can roll the car and like, but it just looks really dumb and nothing happened.
Yeah. It's like your car's made out of concrete.
Yeah, like all the great. Like you look at this footage and it's just like, oh, they look so real. And then as soon as something like impact happens, something goes wrong. It just becomes like the car rolling over looks hilarious.
It looks like a toy.
Car. Yeah, it looks like a Matchbox car. So yeah, it's whatever. It's not that big. I mean, one of their other excuses is like, well, if you're racing properly, you'll never contact another car, so it shouldn't matter to you if there's damage or not.
Yeah. I'm
like, all right, fair enough. Like, it's not like Forza Horizon where you tear these cars up over the course of like cross country stuff. It's a different beast. So yeah, I am not a GT fan at all, and I think you've probably pieced that together as we've talked about this game in the run-up. Is just like, so I will maybe shock you by saying that I really like this.
Do you really like it?
I really, really like this. It is, as the reviews have said, menu heavy and sort of sloggy in places, and I don't care about the weird people that keep talking to me.
They try to give the game a little personality with these like talking head
Yeah, but I think they pull a lot of it. So like one of the things that actually did like set the tone for me is that opening movie where it's like it goes through the history of cars and everything, which reminds me of the opening to Star Trek Enterprise. Oh, yeah. But like that, and then I specifically mentioned importing GT1 for a reason, because after that video it cuts to like a big like sizzle reel of like car racing set to a really good arrangement of the Gran Turismo theme, which you may not know is the Gran Turismo theme because in the first 3 games Sony of America replaced it with some stupid license track.
Yeah.
And I heard the theme in the opening movie of the original GT1 because I imported it and thought it was great, and every time it would come to America you'd never have that theme in there because they'd replace it with garbage or whatever the latest like musical fad that they could get out of Sony recording studios was. And I'm like, why don't you put the theme? So it was really cool. I don't know if how much they've used that in the past couple games because I haven't paid attention to GT, but having that back and like being in that was like, oh, that's a really good tone setter. And like we've talked before about how I think the game is like they tend to be kind of sterile and they tend to like have no sense of place, and it's just like, here's a track. It's just the world is your track, and the track is the world kind of thing. But now, like, you go to like the Tokyo Speedway, and they pan through Tokyo, and there's traffic, and like they model that whole area, and you see a sense of place. You see like that. And like there's a little like having people talk to you about like, oh, like this guy in the cafe who constantly like gives you weird books to. It's like, I wish I was living a life where I just went to a cafe. So I'd like you to collect these 3 cars in the next week. I'm just like, okay,
when
cool.
you come back, I'm gonna read you about 5,000 words about those cars.
But if you go back to that cafe and talk, sometimes you run in like they have the actual like designers of these cars in there, and they'll give you like little personal stories about things, and like that's cool.
It was cool at first. I just started skipping past them after a while.
I mean, I skip past kind of the busy work of it, but I do like the color commentary stuff and the histories of the cars I have in the little like garage thing.
It's an improvement. I will say that it does have more personality.
Yeah, it is embracing the love of cars in a way that previously I think only Forza really hit on.
I think the more you love cars, the more you're going to love this game.
For sure.
This game was created by, and I would argue that Yamauchi maybe is getting a little out of touch because Here's the thing, Matt. The automobile culture is changing. Cars are becoming electric. You can't even buy like stick shifts anymore in most cars. Even like the new Z, like in the US, you can't hardly get it. They're gonna make like 10 like stick shifts in the US or whatever.
Cost so much. I remember when getting the stick shift was the cheaper option.
Right. Yeah. And now it's like this niche thing, and it's hard to get them. Cars aren't running on gas anymore. Like, this game already no longer really represents what modern car culture is anymore.
Well, also like the more and more as I'm interacting with younger people, like they don't understand this car culture idea. Like they don't have a love for cars. They own a car because they have to
it's a means
around.
To an end. Yeah.
A lot of them hate driving. A lot of them are too nervous to drive properly. Which is probably why so many of those Priuses out there irritate the fuck out of me. Like it's a different world. Like to me, I grew up, and part of that's a privilege thing. Part of that's an income level thing. Like I grew up and my dad had a collection of classic '50s Chevys, and like not for long. He had like four Chevys, and like that was cool. And like so and getting my own car was a big deal because like it was just cars were a thing. My mom likes to drive. I drive aggressively like my mom does. Like you hear me swear. I learned that from my mom. Like that's I call people on the road things that my mom called people on the road. It's a tradition.
Yeah.
And
that stuff trickles down for sure.
And like so I appreciate it. And I do think there is a self-awareness of that in this game. I think that's the reason it has that big history montage at the beginning. Partly to set the tone, but also because like this game in a weird way feels like looking backwards at all times.
Yeah.
Like it
feels like it's out of touch in some ways to me.
I don't know if I'd say out of touch so much as I'd say that the car sim, the real driving simulator, is becoming a fantasy RPG because it doesn't exist anymore.
It really, I know. It's crazy.
And like it's. And that is probably also part of why these racing games do not burn up the charts anymore, because
people can't relate to them anymore.
Yeah, you don't relate. Not just that, like Need for Speed. Like people love the Fast and the Furious movies, sure, but what what was the turning point on the Fast and the Furious movies when they stopped being about car racing and started being about heist action.
Yeah.
Right? And
Yeah.
family, of course.
Right, yeah, and family.
But like
funny.
I don't think you can trade on the cool car thing anymore.
Yeah,
so much.
I don't think you can either.
I mean, an individual, obviously, Batman does.
I mean, a
but,
lot
like,
of Gen Z people detest gas-guzzling cars.
Yeah. Well, as they should, because they're
They're gonna have to live on this
they're gonna
planet.
have to live with it. Yeah, I mean, like when they're our age and like fighting squirrels for water in the mutant wastelands, you can point directly to the culture that created something like Gran Turismo as why that's happening.
That's why I was saying it feels a little out of touch.
I mean, the other option is to just not make the game,
Right?
And
Which
I'm sure
isn't an option.
I'm sure at some point that like the guy at the cafe will give me a booklet and make me collect EVs. I'm sure that there'll be electric vehicles. Even Forza has that.
Well, you got to realize it took 8 years to make this mainline Gran Turismo.
True.
It's been 8 years since the last one, so I would guess the next one will absolutely be dominated by electric cars if Yamauchi is willing to do it.
Maybe like he is such an old school car guy. We've both been to those old Polyphony. I don't know if they're still in. I imagine they still are.
They're probably still there.
Where like the building was basically designed for them. Like all the offices are like look like parking garages.
Yeah.
Which is like, God, that must take a toll on your psychological well-being after a while.
That
and
was
they
the
have,
first time I ever saw the sleep capsules
people
in an office.
sleeping under their desks and these little things. Like,
when they invited us there.
Yeah.
And people are sleeping under the desk.
Because they're like, oh, it's daytime, so the devs are asleep.
You would think that like
it was like walking through a bat cave.
Yeah.
It was
You would think they're inviting the journalists over. Okay, everybody wake up.
No.
We don't want you sleeping under your desk. No, they left them sleeping under the desk.
It was like 1 PM, and if you didn't know everyone was sleeping under their desk, you'd think the office was empty.
I know.
It was amazing.
It was weird.
And they had like an elevator, like all the
like a car lift, basically.
a car lift, because all the execs parked all their Ferraris and stuff on the roof.
Yeah.
But they had a car lift that they could lower the car on any floor and roll the car out into the middle of the office,
and
so people could look at the car while they were working on the car models.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Which is like amazing. It's one of the last vestiges of those that period where it's like, oh, we're gonna make all this. It was like when Ion Storm had like the pearl inlaid floors of the Ion Storm logo in the opening lobby, and you're like, how in the world can you afford that? Oh, you can't. You can't.
Yeah,
you couldn't afford that.
Now you're
that's
going.
the answer to that question. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So yeah, there is an element of sort of a throwback here, and that may be one of the reasons I like it, because it is just a sort of like it's doing kind of the Forza thing. But Forza does try to look forward a little more, or at least Horizon does. I don't know. I'm interested to see what Forza Motorsport 9, 8. Is it 8?
If they use a number, but
I don't think they will. I think it'll just be Forza
reboot
Motorsport
it.
again. Yeah. But yeah, I am shocked at how much I like this game. I really enjoy the racing. I like the assists they've done. The racing line works. They've taken a lot of lessons from Forza in terms of usability and user experience. They still need auto tuning. When you upgrade the car, you still have to. They do the thing where like you got a performance point level, which is like the Forza point level.
Rating, basically.
The rating, but you'll hit a thing like early on. They're like, okay, we want you to participate in this race, but to do that, you need a car of this, it'll recommend you should have like 450 or whatever. Yep. And then you got to go in the thing and find the right combination of parts that like raises your rating to 450. Yep. And I can do that, okay, but you know what I'd much rather do? Just be like, pick a number and have it just pick the parts like Forza does to upgrade my car to that, because I don't care about the tuning and all that. That's annoying to me. And of course, you've got the license tests, which are bad.
Which start out really friggin' slow. It's like it's like
turn
or stop.
Although I will say,
stop.
The one license test I haven't been able to get a gold ranking on so far is that first turn one.
Oh yeah, because they give you that TT and it turns so awful, right?
No, that's the second one.
Oh, that's the second one.
That's the one in the fast car. The first one, I don't remember what the first one is. It's a slower kind of.
Is it a Volkswagen Beetle maybe?
It's not a Beetle. It's some compact thing. I don't remember. But it's just like I am something like 0.002 of a second off the gold on that, and I just can't get it. Yep. And I will say that like it hasn't been that bad, because like I don't think there's been a license test so far. I've only got A and B, but I don't think there's been a license test I didn't get a silver on the first try.
Yeah,
getting that gold, but you don't get a reward for silver. Right. You get a reward for all bronze, and you get a reward for all gold, but you get silver. It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
silver's nothing.
Well, they want to get you over the top there. Yeah. They're like, you can either just pass it or you can crush it, basically.
Yeah, so that's the one bit of Dark Souls in this. It's just like, oh, you think middle is okay? No, you get nothing for that.
How do you feel about how the game is structured? Now, it's obviously not set in an open world. After playing Forza Horizon, because honestly, it's kind of the only driving game at this point that I really get into where I spend 40, 50 hours with it. It is very strange now to play a driving game where you're transported to each track, where you're not in this open world and you can just like drive to the track. And Forza Horizon does kind of do that anyway. Like you get there and then it just loads in the track, but it still gives you the feeling of continuity.
Yeah, but I don't care about that in this. Like, because Forza Motorsport's not going to do that either.
Yeah, probably not.
Like Horizon is specifically an open world arcade racer. It is not doing what this is. The thing that makes it okay for the most part is that the fucking load time is instant.
Yeah.
Like, I know that's the PS5 thing, but one of the things that would stop me from playing Gran Turismo games back in the day was how long it took to get to each race. It did take a long time. And now it's like, boom, 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 we're racing. Go.
I can still remember the sound of the PS2 chugging.
Yep.
Trying to get the data off the disc.
That drive to its limit. But like, yeah, like there's two things I will say about the PS5 hardware thing here. Number one, I mean, I know the whole point is that it loads almost instantly. On everything. That's like what Cerny was going on and on about. But it really matters here. Like, you get me into that race immediately, and I will do one more race, one more race forever. If you give me time to think about it, I'm gonna like, maybe not. Yeah. The other thing is, this is the first game I've played on the PS5 where I'm like, the DualSense is essential feedback.
It's incredible. Yeah.
Like
it really is.
Like the feeling of what the road under you, the feeling of like what the brakes are doing,
dude,
what
the brakes on every car feel different.
They feel different. They give you proper feedback. They tell you when you're about to hit that like point of no return. Like, it's like driving an actual car.
You know when you're riding on that edge of the tires breaking free.
And it makes it so easy to like half apply the brakes or to slightly accelerate. Like it gives you the force feedback.
It pushes back.
Yeah,
it tells you when you've depressed the brakes all the way. You don't have to squeeze it all the way before you get there.
And credit to the license test, that's where I really learned that. Was like, oh, if I just sort of feather the gas down like a quarter of the way until I feel resistance, I can accelerate out of this turn and cut like almost a second off the time. But if I just floor it, I'm gonna pull the back end out.
I agree 1,000%.
So yeah,
DualSense stuff is amazing.
The DualSense in this is like I mean, everything else. This is the opposite of like, you're making my fucking controller shake to simulate footsteps for some reason. Stop it. This is like, I would not play this game without the DualSense.
Yeah,
like it is essential to the. I mean, obviously everybody has a DualSense with a PS5, but it is essential to the experience.
Yep. One issue I have with the game is I feel like there's a lot of grinding in it.
Oh, for sure. Also, I think it's
where you're racing races with a car that's way too overpowered for the race, and you're winning by almost a whole lap in a 2-lap race.
Well, also,
just because you need the credits.
Well, the other thing I was surprised, I haven't needed credits so far, but I have been surprised by the fact that there doesn't seem to be a limit on like there's requirements like for like they're like recommended requirements for like, oh, you should have a car at least this, but when they say at least, they don't care if you go over that. Yeah. Like, because Forza usually has a range. You know, like you need it to be like between this and this. This is like, oh, I need a 450 car. I'm bringing in a 680 car, and no one cares.
No one's gonna care.
Like, you're like,
and you lap.
You go through the whole thing. Like, which I get. You know, it's fine. I mean, I guess that's fine if you want to overpower things and just not have any real competition there. You can do that. Even turning it up to like like the expert. Like if your car's that good, the other cars literally can't go that fast. So at some point, I would guess that if you put the power up enough, like in some races, I'm sure they scale to you. But there's other races that are like, this is specifically a race between cars that are at this level. Yeah. And you can just sort of
and most of them, they'll let you enter whatever car you want.
Yeah. Yeah. As long as you meet the other, you know, like the drive requirements and the country of origin or whatever, stuff like that. But like power doesn't seem to matter. Which might be that's probably a bonus for some people if you'd rather just tune up a car so you can't possibly lose. Like, that's an option in real life too, I suppose.
But like, I finally got enough to where I could buy my first decent car, which oddly enough is the car that I own in real life. And I entered it in a race, and it was like 50 below what everybody else was, and it wasn't fast enough. I was being left in the dust by a Volkswagen Beetle. And I was just like, what do they got under the hood of that thing? And I had to go back and grind and race a couple, and I had already spent my credits. So I only had like 1,000 credits left. So I had to decide, do I want to go back and grind to generate enough credits so that I can buy a whole other car? or do I want to go back and race a couple races so I can get enough credits to buy parts to make the car that I just bought that isn't fast enough? It's, I mean, it's the typical tug of war that you have in a lot of racing games. I just felt like I found myself doing it a lot more, and especially it felt like the more I played, the more it got that way. Some of the prices for the really nice cars are absurd, Matt.
Yeah, well, some of them you need invitations to buy.
Right.
Which I thought was funny.
But some of the car, like there's one car in this game that's like $150 in real money if you buy it with microtransactions. And like playing to get that car with credits, you'd have to play for like the rest of the year to get the car. So I feel like a lot of this game, the way they're handling the pricing of the cars, the way they're handling the microtransactions, there's a little bit of a pay-to-win thing going on here. At least I feel like there is. Now, when you go online, all bets are kind of off. But basically, I feel like in a lot of ways, this game is asking you to pay money to make getting through the campaign easier or quicker. But
I mean, I have not had any money problems in this. Because the upgrade parts are actually pretty cheap.
What was the first car that you bought with your own credits?
My car, Audi TTS.
Okay. How much was that for?
72,
do you remember?
72.
Oh, well, that explains it. Like, my first car, as soon as I got 40 grand, I bought my first car. And as that turned out to be a mistake.
Yeah, I didn't buy that car until it wasn't too far in, but it was basically when it started. I must have been on book 7 or so. Like I was pretty far in because they let me see the garage and see the dealership and stuff. And then at a certain point, I'm like, oh, I could probably buy my car now. So I did. And I couldn't use it for a couple times because they wanted to. I was in the stuff I was doing had required cars from Japan.
Yeah.
But then as soon as I could use it, like I brought it in, and it actually, that's a pretty good car, really. The ratings in like the 500s, I think, on this, and I was able to. And I will say, it feels just like my car. I am pretty instinctive about when you make a turn, how you make a turn. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. It's exact. It feels exactly like driving my car.
It's cool.
So yeah, and then like I haven't upgraded that at all, but I did. My only issue is like sometimes like, this is like traditional in these games, but it's like, okay, now the next thing the campaign wants me to do is race in this thing, but to do that I need a car that's like front engine rear wheel drive from Japan, and I only have one of those because I won it in the last race, but it's like rated at like 280 and I need 450, so now I got to go like upgrade it. And I don't actually I don't like this car, so I'm never gonna drive it again after I win this series.
You don't want to put the parts in it,
but I have to put the parts in it because it's cheaper to do that than buy a car that fits that thing. But it's
I've been in that position a lot in this game. I feel like
the other thing is I think it locks you. I mean, obviously you don't have to follow the cafe campaign or whatever, and you can go race whatever you want as long as the license is active. But it really feels like you're sort of on this very narrow path for a long time.
Calling the cafe a campaign, I mean, it's just a series of races basically with these little talking head things in between.
Was in comparison to Forza, Horizon. I assume the new Forza will do it too, where it's like, Forza just throws like, here's 7 series you could all do right now. Right. Like of all different kinds of cars and different kinds of things. Like whatever you want, wherever you own.
Off-road,
whatever you've upgraded,
whatever.
Pick one. Like just do whatever you want. And if you don't have anything, you're going to win it soon. I do like that this game has kind of learned from Forza where it's like, give them cars. Like just give people cars all the time. Don't be so, don't be like the old GTs where it's like, you're racing a Honda Civic for like 4 hours.
I feel like there's a little bit of that in this game, but I also feel like that is the identity of Gran Turismo.
But I mean, they throw so many cars at you in this that like I've never felt like that.
There are like 20 available right away in the used car lot or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, they tell you to buy one of 3, but like when you're winning cars in the races constantly. Yeah. So like
most races you win a car.
Yeah, and it's it's fun to get some of the some of them are pretty iconic. Like I got my Tirreno pretty early on and got to do my initial D tuning on that. That was fun. Like I like it. Like it's still, this stuff is not riveting. Also, like this whole thing's like, oh, this is where all the car enthusiasts go somewhere down a dirt road with no parking lot. That's what it really like.
The whole thing is a little flimsy.
That's the thing is where Forza, like especially with Horizon, is a little too broy and embarrassing. This is just pretentious as hell. Right. Like it's just like
this is the rich guy's game, basically.
This is what Yamauchi wants his life to be, basically.
Exactly.
Whereas like the
He's like, if I can just live down a dirt road from this little coffee cafe where I take my $400,000 car and park it
Yeah.
and talk to some other guy who showed up in a $700,000
Right.
car about our cars. And
here comes this other guy. He wants to know if that's my year. He's the guy who designed the car I drove to this cafe. Oh, wow, we're going to sit down and have a chat. It's like, whereas like Forza is just like a bunch of Australian guys going like, what if we got to just drink and then drive and no one could do anything about it? It's like
that's great.
Yeah, it's two very different takes on what sort of car culture should be.
Yeah, Veritas says seems incredibly boring. I could see where watching this footage you would be. This game is freaking. Oh yeah, boring.
if you thought the stat screens on Elden Ring were impenetrable, oh my.
Yeah, these.
Wait until you start trying to figure out which version of the polished ports gives you 4 more horsepower and how that translates into performance points, whether it would be better just to get a weight reduction or throw in the sport brakes.
Or just get a brand new car. The other thing about this game is you can't sell your cars for credits.
Right, that's true.
So that's what...
Because you're collecting them, Shane. Every time you own one, it has to go in your permanent giant garage
they're
slot.
doing that so that you buy cars.
Right.
With real money that you have.
I'll be honest, I didn't even realize there was a real money thing in this.
Yeah. It's bad, the way that they've done it. Other things that I like about this game, though, the audio, the 3D audio is incredible. So when I play games, after I've captured, I'll go out to the living room to play on my big surround sound setup in my 4K LG TV. And my spot, quote unquote, on the couch is on the right side of the couch. Like our couch has ottomans on both ends. So Michelle will sit on the left side with her ottoman. I'll sit on the right side. To play this game, I moved my ottoman to the center of the couch and sat in the center, dead center of my big surround sound system. It is flipping incredible. Mm-hmm. I also just got my brand new receiver like a month ago that has Dolby Atmos 3D. It sounds amazing. Like the way that they've tuned the different elements of the audio, it really sounds like you're in the car. Yep. Like the engine isn't all that overpowering. Like I hear more of like the rattle of the stuff inside the cabin and the wind and the sound of the tires more than I hear the actual engine, which is how it really works.
And you hear the engine more if you pull to an outside the car viewpoint. Like it's all done like this. Very well done. It's
really, really good. So horrible music though. Holy crap, man.
I actually like the music. I don't like the pop punk.
I think the music in this game is so bad.
I've liked the music so far.
Do you like Music Rally where they play like the EDM versions of like
I thought that was fun.
Duty-free tracks? Like,
well, the Royal Philharmonic is not duty-free tracks.
Well, the songs are. Those songs are hundreds of years old. Like they don't have to pay a license for any of that stuff. Like,
but like that is also, again, that is part of Yamauchi's car culture.
He's old.
Is like you're driving along, listening to classical music. I mean, I enjoy it.
Are you effing kidding me? I thought the music in this game was terrible. It was either crap like that, or for whatever reason, the 80s butt rock that every Japanese developer seems to love, where it's just like it's like Sonic. The guitar solo goes on for like 5 minutes. It's just...
there's a lot of J-rock in it.
It literally sounds like the music was made in like 1984 to me.
No, that's just what it is.
By like a White Snake knockoff band.
No, that's just what J-rock is.
I know. I've been hearing it for years. I hate it.
It doesn't change.
I know. It's been the same for forever, and I just don't like it. If you like it, you're probably going to love the music in this. I hate it.
I like the weird classical stuff, and I like the mix of things. I don't like it when there's like a subsection of the soundtrack which is like, I just didn't know Sum 41 had that much influence. Like it's like wow, everybody in here is just doing this like kind of, I don't know, like let's do Green Day, but let's not do it that good, kind of thing. Like it's weird. It's like C-list Green Day impersonators, but then like the rest of it I actually really like, and I also love the weather. The weather, and it's really well done.
And look, by the way, people, like I see people saying, "Oh, it isn't like." I do like classical music. When you put it to some generic ass like EDM beat, it's different.
I mean, I've heard that on the music, whatever that. Basically, that's there to like occupy you while it installs.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I've not gone back to it, by the way.
I went back and played a few more, like because the others are indeed like the J-rock, butt rock
Music
stuff.
Rally is what it's called.
Yeah, and then which I guess they're going to keep adding to because it threatens that at the end of it.
Right.
But I mean, I didn't mind that, but I don't see the point of playing that, especially because you don't get anything in the main game for it.
Yeah.
You just unlock more songs, which to some people would probably feel like a negative.
Me.
The sixth one, the big final one, is another like EDM classical music track, which I thought was funny. But in the main game, most of the classical music is just the classical music tracks.
Yeah, I'm okay with that stuff. It's when they try to throw a dance beat behind it that I'm like, what is going on here?
But
and I still like it better than the butt rock, I'll add.
Yeah, but like the weather, there's a couple races I did, and specifically races I did in my Audi, where I'm like, I think the Tokyo Highway one was like, it was raining the whole time, and like, first off, the rain has a direction, so like if you turn into the rain, it's harder to see, which is great. And when you go through tunnels, it rolls off the car realistically, and it leaves that little like patch of wet on the side where the wipers end.
Yep.
And that stays there.
Yeah.
Like it's so good.
Oh, the game is gorgeous,
so
man.
Good.
It really is gorgeous. Just across the board, the cars, the lighting, everything about it. It's
like I've watched more replays in this than any other racing game I've probably ever owned.
I'd agree.
Like
like the race ends and I stick
incredible.
around. I don't immediately just tap out. I'll watch at least for like 20 seconds of the replay.
Yeah, it's really
the game's
good.
gorgeous. Yeah,
really good. I mean,
this is also available for PS4. This is a second game in a row where you can see that the work was done on the PS5 version to make the PS5 version significantly better looking than the PS4
it's like I've said, like because of the architecture and how things work now, you're literally just turning the sliders down for the PS4. Until
one thing of note,
properly.
by the way, this is not a free upgrade from PS4 to PS5.
No,
Horizon,
I think those are over.
It is. Horizon Forbidden West was the last one.
Yeah.
And they only did that begrudgingly after fans complained.
Yeah, because they already said they would.
Yep. So from now on, all PS5 upgrades are going to cost you $10, and this is included.
PS5 games are $70 now.
Yeah,
it's just
how
the way
it is.
Sony
First party
ones
stuff anyway.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. Like, this is a quality game. Did you play online much?
I played a couple online races, like the sport thing or whatever.
It's basically GT Sport.
It's
they basically just took GT Sport and just put it in the game.
My main problem with it is like it takes so long to get into a race. You gotta go wait for people and then you gotta run a qualifying.
Yep.
I do enjoy that, like when you first load that up, it's got this whole thing where it's like you're gonna be you're gonna be penalized if you run into other people. Everybody be respectful of each other. Let's have a clean race and everybody have fun. I'm just like, sir, are you new? Have you never been online before? And sure enough, like on the first turn, like some guy named Dan was just barreling through, and of course they make him a ghost as after he hits the first car, he turns like, intangible and like runs through everybody else and hits a wall. Yeah. And then he's got a big thing over him for the rest of the race saying what his time penalty is for doing that. And I raced a couple of those. There's only like one race I could do because it was the daily race or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I went into the lobbies and poked around the other multiplayer thing, which I think hilarious. I think it's hilarious that the multiplayer gateway is the fucking dock, like the boat dock. It's like, oh, is that where I get on my sailboat and go to the track day and go to, I'm just like, I'm like this.
As you said, very pretentious.
This game, you're basically playing Pachter.
Yeah, you are kind of. You're right. That's a good way to put it. That's kind of his life. He has his boat docked right outside his
this is the Michael Pachter RPG.
Yep.
If Michael Pachter was really obsessed with cars,
which he's really not.
He's not.
Yeah.
But like if you could make if you could make this game but about like whiskey.
Yeah, Scotch.
Yeah.
I'll say this, I think the online modes in this are great. You're right. If you get into the heart of it, it's a big commitment. There are some modes like quick play, multiplayer modes that are more accessible for people who don't want to really get into it. But you're right. Like there's the whole like qualifying thing. But I would add.
Also, I get real tired of starting in 8th place.
Yeah.
Does that ever change?
It doesn't. You always start last. You mean online or just in general?
Online, I was able to run like a qualifying run and started in 4th. But like on the offline campaign, you're always last.
Yeah,
like,
you always have to fight through the
I'm like, dude, do you know how many of these races I've won this year? Like, I should be in first at this
place.
Point.
Yeah.
I do miss that one of the, I think it was 3 or maybe it was 2. Like one of the old ones let you run a qualifying lap if you wanted to like improve your pole position. Mm-hmm. Improve your starting position, which I actually appreciated it sometimes because sometimes you just don't want to pass 7 other cars. Yeah. Because while you're trying to fight through the pack, that guy in first is getting way
ahead. Yeah, you have to chase him down. I thought the online was great. There are simple online lobbies, as you said, for people who just want to jump in and race, and there are the daily races to kind of keep you engaged on a day-to-day basis. But
I found the standard multiplayer was a lot easier because you didn't have to wait for like 4 minutes. The next race will start. It's like, okay, just let me play.
Yeah, but there's also the hardcore like iRacing style hyper-realistic simulation, and if you do get into those, one, you're going to get your ass whooped. I know I did. Like, the people who are driving in those things are literally like pro race drivers, it felt like. But the stakes feel so high because you've gone through the qualifying. Like, you I don't know, when you're putting some skin in the game before you ever race, and I know when the race finally starts, I'm sitting there and I'm a little nervous, like waiting for the race to start. Like, that doesn't happen to me in online games hardly at all anymore, but it happens in this. So I really like the online environment. There's also 2-player split screen in this, believe it or not.
Yeah.
So if you want to play local, that's pretty cool. You don't get a lot of that anymore in modern racing games. So overall, I would just say it's really the total package. It's a very pretty game. It sounds great. It plays very well. But it still, to me, is very sterile and lacks personality. And I think you nailed it when you said pretentious.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an improvement.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It's just, you're still comparing it to Forza, and it's still going to fall short in that category. But it is the most charismatic Gran Turismo ever made. Like,
which isn't saying a whole lot.
Which is not saying, the bar's on the ground, but, like... I appreciate that they recognize that they need to do that and put the effort in to try to do that. I'm not saying they succeeded 100%, but like, it doesn't feel like wandering around a white void that happens to have cars every few feet.
Yeah.
Like GT5 was.
Would you agree with me that if you haven't been a fan of Gran Turismo in the past, you probably shouldn't spend the money on this one either?
Probably not. I mean, but I will say if you liked it before and you felt that it's just fallen behind in terms of presentation and sort of like that intangible feeling of like, hey, do you like these things, or are you just trying to simulate the mechanics of this thing? I think it gets back into the love of them, but as we said, in a very pretentious sort of like different way than Forza does.
Yeah,
Forza's a lot broier about it. I don't just mean Horizon where everybody's at a music festival.
Right.
I mean, like motorsport
is that way too. It's got
is
a
that
little
way
bit
too,
of it.
and having the Top Gear, the Top Gear approach to car culture, which is like. Just more of like dudes being dudes hanging out and
talking
stuff and like being sort of snarky about it. And it's just like no one on like Jeremy Clarkson is not going to be invited to that cafe.
No,
because he's too loud.
He's way too loud.
Everybody needs to be very quiet drinking their tea.
Yeah,
like and if you
want to talk
the mood, if you want to talk about your car, take it outside.
Yeah,
like there's an element of that.
There is. Yep, good way to put it.
But I appreciate that they tried to make it something more engaging. It is more engaging. It's just not as engaging as the competition. Luckily for them, the competition is not out yet.
Yeah, it's still in the garage, and who knows what's happening with that. Yeah. Like, I really thought that game would be out by now. But
yeah, I mean, I think we all did. But like,
it's not.
It's not. And
so
they showed that. They showed that like at E3 2019.
Yeah,
right?
they showed it when they debuted the Xbox
3
Series
years
X.
ago.
Yep. I don't know what's going on.
Now look, like Forza may come out and we'll just be like, oh, this.
Now we know why.
Yeah, now we know why they were presenting. They really were making the Michael Pachter RPG. Like there is a brandy collecting game in this. And then you have to deliver it
in the cars.
In the car without spilling it.
Right. Yeah. Because each sip is worth $1,000.
Yes. You have to hold it. Like that's going to be the PSVR version. You have to hold it up as you drive down Tokyo Hills like an Initial D, not spilling a drop.
Yeah. That's funny. Okay, so there you go. That's Gran Turismo 7. I think that's 2 thumbs up from us.
Yeah. I give it a thumbs up.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not going to change your mind, but it kind of did change my mind. Like I have had no interest in this series for years, and I didn't even want to play this. And I loaded it up, and it really pulled me in.
Yep.
Now maybe that was partly because of what I played right before it.
Yeah.
And it meant if I really I'm like, oh, if I get sucked into this game, it means I can have excuse not going back to the one I just played.
We'll get to that one in a little bit.
But no, this was much like the Batman. I was like, oh wow, I really like this.
Yeah.
Like, so that was nice. I was pleasantly surprised by this game. Am I going to tell you to spend $70 on it?
That's a tough one.
But if the day comes when it's cheaper and you kind of have that sort of like, oh, I liked Gran Turismo, but I don't like, give it a shot at like $30 when the day comes, $35.
I will say this: it's been 8 years since the last Gran Turismo mainline, and I think it'll take another 8 years for the next one.
Probably.
And I think that's about the right amount of time.
Yeah, it seems to take them about that much time to evolve. Anyway.
Yeah. So
like the next one will probably be about as good as Forza 6.
Probably. Yeah. Yeah. So I guess one thing I would say is I agree. Maybe wait till the price drops eventually. But I do think that this is going to be the de facto PlayStation 5 driving sim for maybe the whole generation.
Yeah, for sure. Like it's the best Gran Turismo in the world.
I would agree with that.
Yes.
Yep. Okay,
let's
move on.
Top Gear would say.
Yep.
But I'm still looking forward to Forza in a way.
Oh, me too.
But I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if
it's been a while for that game too.
Yeah, I don't know if Forza's going to look this good.
It'll be tough.
There's an attention to detail in this that is just that goes beyond the cars. It's like because Gran Turismo used to have a problem where it's like the cars looked amazing and the tracks and the environments were okay, you know. And the other thing, I mean, I'm sure they fixed this many versions ago, but there was for a long time, up until at least 4, maybe 5. They used the same fucking tire squeal sound effect that the PS1 games had. Yeah. And it was like it's all like incredible, like high end, like just tech thing, and like you turn it and go, and it's like, what are you?
Right.
Come on, like what do you? The tire squealing in this is very high end. It's different depending on what car you're using, what kind of tires you're using. Like this is a thing I pay attention to in this series because that's who I am, and like it squeals different depending on what kind of road you're on. It squeals different whether the water is on the road. Like they finally nailed. I mean, maybe that was already fixed. I didn't play 6, but like. I was like the first thing I was like, okay, the tire squeals still sound like something out of a freaking Genesis game or what? Like, no, they got it. They're in.
Yep.
Sound is pristine.
And therefore, thumbs up.
Thumbs up. Tire squealing fixed. That's all I needed.
Yep. Okay, let's move on. We need to move on. We're going to talk next about Kirby and the Forgotten Land. This is a Switch exclusive. It is the first Kirby 3D platformer. And there's a free demo available on Switch right now. I'm not sure if it's still up, but I think it probably is. And it has 3 different missions that you can play through, 2 regular missions, and then a boss fight. So it's a pretty beefy demo, and if you play it, it does not save your progress for the final game because it's an a la carte demo, which won't work. It doesn't make sense for that save to carry over. However, you will, if you do complete the demo, you do get some stuff you'll get a code that will carry over into the final game. The first thing that I would say is that it's kind of a 3D platformer. You have free 3D movement, but it's not like Super Mario 64 or Super Mario Galaxy. It's more like Super Mario 3D World, where you have full 3D control, but the camera, you don't really always have control over the camera. So it's not like a free roaming. Here's a big world. You need to collect 8 of these things in the world, and you figure out how to get there. It's still kind of a very linear, guided experience. Even the camera sometimes will go to like a top-down view, or it'll go to a side view, so it still kind of looks like the 2D Kirby games. But they do give you free sort of range of motion with Kirby as you play the game. The setup for the game is very simple. You're seeing it right now. Kirby's loving life, living large. All of a sudden, the sky cracks open. He gets sucked into a crack in the sky, and when he wakes up, he's living in hell, a.k.a. Earth. Like 2050 AD is what it seems like it is. The near future Earth, where it looks like Earth has just ended, basically. It's like it's gone through an apocalypse of some kind.
Although, given what Kirby is, his arrival on Earth technically qualifies as cosmic horror.
He might be the apocalypse.
Yeah.
It may be him that caused this. I never thought
a being of
about
such
it.
power cannot exist on Earth without consequences.
Yeah. So, anyway, I really thought this game might be a more free-form, like 3D platform where you could just go anywhere and like you're not like basically trying to.
The sand sticks to him. For some reason, I find that interesting.
That means that his skin is moist.
Yeah. Like, we got a little information on what it would be like to touch Kirby.
Yes, we did.
And I don't think we
more
wanted
clues.
that.
I don't know if we do want any more information about Kirby.
So that's the information we've got. So that's the first thing we learn here is that Kirby is moist.
Yes, that's disturbing. It's something I really didn't need to know, to be honest.
Well, I'm
but
here
that was
to
very
notice
observant.
Those things. Yeah.
But anyway, it's not like a typical 3D platformer where you can just go wherever you want and do whatever you want. It's more of a guided experience.
Yeah, I see that now that I'm seeing the footage. But it's funny how the trailers really don't.
No, they really kind of made it seem like it was this. And I'll say this, it is way better. Like, it's better than the 2D Kirby games where you're literally just going on a 2D plane. At least you have some free range of motion.
But this is technically like like Kirby's had games like this since the N64 to some degree. Like, there's some 2.5D to it.
Yeah. I mean, there were 2.5D Kirby games in the past.
Yeah.
And there were Yoshi games like that too, or at least one of them. But as you can see, this is more than that. It's not just 2.5D.
Yeah.
And like the boss fights, those all take place in full 3D space and stuff like that. So it's not exactly like other Kirby games, which I think is good. This is what I was hoping for from this. I've played enough 2D Kirbys at this point. The game is interesting in that there are kind of two different sets of abilities. So you get abilities from things that you inhale as Kirby. So if you inhale a character and he has a Link hat on, suddenly you take over Link's characteristics. There are bombs, there are swords, all this stuff that you can inhale that then give you the ability of whatever you've inhaled. But then there are also these more context-sensitive transformations, and that's where Kirby comes from, where he can suck up like really huge objects, and he actually takes the form of those objects. And the crazy part is that you can mix them together. So, for example, you see right now I'm Kirby Link or whatever. Later on, I get Kirby, which is the car that you turn into, and Kirby has Link's little hat on top. And when you finish with Kirby...
That makes it a Buick Cutlass.
It makes it pretentious, Matt. Just like Gran Turismo. And when you get done with Kirby and you decide to discard it, you still have that power-up. So it remembers like what you had and doesn't take it away, which is cool. Because a big part of Kirby games is having the right form of Kirby to get through whatever you're trying to fight through. Whatever enemies you're fighting, whatever environmental puzzles there are out there. And so I think it provides a lot of flexibility while still making it fun. And not only do those transformations stack on top of whatever you've already transformed into, they also are extremely frequent. So in this little demo, I think it probably took me... You're actually probably going to see almost the whole demo in this 20 minutes of B-roll right here. I did cut down the boss fight because it was like the same thing over and over. I just showed the beginning of it and then me winning the boss fight. But for the most part, this whole demo is like 20 minutes, and I probably had 8 or 9 different power-ups throughout the course of the 20 minutes. So it's fast and furious as far as always giving you something to do. The game never settled into a groove, which some people may not like. Some people like grooves. I liked it. It's like around every corner, I never knew what to expect. I never knew what I was going to be doing, what form I was going to be able to take, what the enemies were going to be like. And of course, a big part of Kirby in general is just like, oh, there's an enemy. What happens when I suck that enemy up? And that's a whole other level of fun that's intrinsic to this franchise as well. So I had a ton of fun with this. I was pleasantly surprised by it. Here's when Kirby meets Kirby, which is going to end up becoming an iconic scene, I believe, in video game history. And then Kirby's fun as hell, dude. It's just a car, and you can drive it, and they build the level around the car. So, like, it is side-scrolling for the most part, but they've built ramps, and so you're jumping the car.
And animals unwittingly dive to their deaths.
Pretty much.
In Kirby's mouth.
There is a dark side to Kirby. There's no doubt about it. It's
Remember,
interesting.
The bio on him, written by Hal, Laboratories, says, a being of infinite power.
There's definitely a creep factor to Kirby, I believe.
Yeah.
But
hi.
Yeah. Hi.
Hi. We're all friends here, yeah?
But most importantly, like, all the transformations, including Kirby, are fun. Like, I really enjoyed it. You turn into a traffic cone that can do like a butt stomp, and you use that to like bust open pipes that will then spray water and send you up to levels. You can use it to attack enemies. It's like a butt stomp that's just really powerful. It just kept providing new upgrades, new transformations, new stuff. And again, like, I played it for 20 minutes, and it's hard for me to even recount all the cool stuff I experienced in this. Now, it could be that they're front-loading the demo with the really cool stuff, which does happen sometimes. But I would argue that Nintendo hasn't really been guilty of doing that with its Switch games yet, anyway.
Yeah, if anything, Nintendo stuff tends to escalate.
It usually is just the first couple levels. And that feels like that's what this is, because it does have like the basic tutorials and kind of the teaching element of it.
And if this is anything like the previous Kirby games in recent memory, at some point this just becomes hard as nails.
Well, at this point, it's easy as hell.
But that's how Kirby rolls.
It's true. It does.
So does Yoshi, really. Like the game itself, like the main game is like easy, and then like okay, now the real shit begins.
Like, well, yeah, if you want to collect everything, and that's Nintendo in a nutshell, isn't it? Like they provide a path for the kids to get through the game, and then the parent, if they really want to dig into it, will
and then
find.
Just so you know, like Super Mario 3D World is like, oh, there's a whole other like set of worlds to go through.
Yeah, and
those are like for expert mode.
Yep. Yeah, and so I don't know that this game's gonna have that because
it's not really level driven, so that I don't know. But like I wouldn't surprise me if there was some kind of like new game plus like expert thing or something at some like Kirby is not afraid to be difficult.
Yep. And then there's like all these CG cinematics that should just be able to run like on the Switch. Like
now, I'm even more interested like in the fact that like the like the fox things and the cages have very distinct textures on them for like what that material is made out of.
Yeah.
And all the Kirby creatures are smooth.
Well, those are fur shaded there.
That one's fur shaded, but if you look at like the Waddle Dees and Kirby, they're smooth. They do not have so they're moist, but they have no texture to. There's no pebble, there's no scale, there's no nothing like that. They are just smooth balloon. It's like a wet balloon.
Yeah.
That's what Kirby would feel like.
Welcome to Investigation Discovery on twitch.tv/systemgames.
Like a wet, squishy balloon.
Yeah, I think that's accurate. I think that's kind of what
like
Kirby
a Japanese cheesecake.
Oh.
I bet that's what Kirby feels like.
That could be what they based him on. What they decided to design him on. I'm not even like joking.
If Pac-Man's based on a pizza, why can't Kirby be based on cheesecake?
Right. Someday
we cracked the code.
We're going to have to get to the bottom of this Kirby thing. I'm surprised no one's done this before.
And since cheesecake is the ultimate dessert, Kirby is the ultimate life form. Eat your heart out, Shadow the Hedgehog.
Yeah. Well, wait. What? How did you say Hal described him again?
What?
How did you say Hal described him again?
Immeasurable a being
power?
of infinite power.
Infinite power.
Yeah.
Is infinite or immeasurable more scary? Immeasurable may be more scary.
I mean, technically, infinite is immeasurable.
I guess you're right.
But immeasurable is a more unknown thing because you don't even know. Maybe he's infinite. Maybe we don't know.
Yeah.
See, now the hat has like that knit texture on it.
Well, that's because it's the CG cinematic.
Right.
Yeah.
So like, clearly they are paying close attention to what, and you can see it there. Like when it pulls out, it's still there.
Yeah.
So clearly they're paying a lot of attention to the texture and what something would feel like to touch, which means the fact that Kirby is moist and smooth is an intentional choice.
I think that's definitely intentional.
Yeah.
Yeah. No doubt about that.
This is all I'm going to talk about. So you keep talking about the game, and I'm going to keep figuring out what Kirby's going to feel like if you grab him.
Well, there's not a lot more to really talk about with the game, because again, it was just 3 short levels that I finished in like 20 minutes. But I'm impressed with the game, and I'm really excited for it. I believe it's coming out on March 25th, the full thing. As I said, what you do in this demo does not carry over to the final game, but if you finish it, you do get a code that you can use to download some items when the final game comes out. Nintendo's been doing a lot of that lately. It's like, I don't really want to have to like write down a code. It feels so like NES era. Oh, I'm saving Zelda. I've got this little code that I have to like put in or whatever.
Well, if they let you just automatically do something, then the child might get online.
Yeah, exactly.
And we can't have that.
We can't have that because they're not doing that already with their $1,100 smartphone that their parents bought them. It's funny. Graphically, I think the game looks okay. It's not, obviously the levels are really small and self-contained. It's not trying to draw an open world or anything, but I think the textures are nice and crisp. The frame rate seems to be good most of the time. But there were a couple times where the world opened up a little bit and it chugged. Mm-hmm. And this game is coming out in like 2 weeks. I don't know how much polishing up they're going to be able to do on the graphics.
Well, this may also be an older build or something.
It's possible.
Demos tend to be kind of old compared to the final.
Oh, yeah, here's where he turns into a soda machine. And like, again, the transformations in this are awesome. Like I said, eventually he turns into a traffic cone. Here you're a soda machine that can just shoot out soda cans. There's ammo for it, so eventually you can pick up soda cans and refill your ammo for it. It's pretty cool, man. I'm pretty impressed with this game. I had a lot of fun with it. I didn't want it to end when the demo ended. The boss fight was a little tedious, but...
Vending Mouth.
Yeah.
I knew a guy who used that as a street name back in the day.
Oh, really?
Vending Mouth. Yeah, that was
But I was pleasantly surprised by this game. I really like it a lot more than I thought I was going to like it. And I think most people will too. It so far is very easy. So if you're wondering if like I get this for my kid, will they be able to handle it? Absolutely, they will be able to. You may not enjoy it that much until you get later on when it becomes a little more challenging. But I had fun with the beginning of the game, and it seems like this is actually just the start of it. So there you go, Kirby and the Forgotten Land coming to Switch. I believe on March 25th. And there's a free demo on the eShop right now that's 3 levels long. And I think most people, after you play this demo, you'll have a really good idea of whether you want to plunk down the full price for it. And it is a $60 game. I'll just jump ahead to the boss fight. And there's the cone, which isn't so great with mobility, but his attacks are awesome. And then also these roses that you collect. I believe there's 5 in each level. So on the early levels, it's pretty easy to find them all. Later on, I'm guessing it may become a little more difficult. But, obviously that's another thing that older players can get into is trying to find all those coins. But here's what I was talking about. Some of the scenarios are pretty interesting. They've found creative ways to make use of some of the transformations in the game. And I guess they're called mouthfuls. I refuse to call them that. I know someone's probably watching this right now going, Shane, they're called mouthfuls. And I don't care. That's a dumb thing. I call them transformations.
Oh, but you were all the way behind Monsties.
Oh, right. Exactly. I forgot about that one. And I'll just skip ahead to the boss.
I'll never forget Monsties.
Really quickly so you guys can see it. Here you go. You fight basically a gorilla with a mohawk.
Well, he's finally here performing
and also
for you.
You can see one of the other power-ups that I found, which was an ice thing that I could literally freeze him solid. However, they wouldn't let you actually shatter the gorilla, which is what I was really hoping for. But there you go. Victory. It was so funny. In that boss fight, Matt, I lost almost all my health immediately, figured out how to beat the boss, and basically beat the whole boss with 2 pixels of health left. I never got hit again. So game's not challenging in the early going, but look, that makes sense. That's the way Nintendo designs their games, so the kids that play them can get through a couple levels while the parents wait for it to get hard and take over. That's pretty much how it works. But there you go. Kirby and the Forgotten Land, Switch exclusive, launching March 25th. All right, let's move on. We're going to talk next. Well, I'm not even going to talk about it. Matt's not going to talk about it. We have a special guest to talk about it, and that is Vincent Borchardt. Matt and I were inundated with games this week, and we needed Vincent to jump in and cover a game for us that's been getting really high review scores. That game is Far Changing Tides. Have you messed around with this game at all, Matt?
Nope. I'm aware of it, but there hasn't been time.
It has like an 8.5 Metacritic right now. It's available for everything, and it's also on Game Pass, and I talked to Vincent about it, and here is his report. All right, we're here with Vincent Borchardt to talk about Far Changing Tides. Now, Vincent, I did not have time to play this, but I will admit that I was excited by this game, and I wished I had time to play it. It's been getting pretty high review scores out there. Do you feel like they've got it right?
I'd say it's okay. I'm not sure if it's my type of game as much, but it feels like what it's doing well.
Okay. And this is it's kind of like a camouflaged side-scrolling platformer, right? Like you look at it and you don't really think of it as a platformer, but it kind of plays that way. Is that right?
Yeah, it's a platformer, more puzzle than platformer. It's a lot more of the atmosphere. As you've seen in many of the marketing materials, you just have a ship and you're sailing along from place to place, left to right, and then scrolling along. And occasionally there'll be something in your way, and then you've got to solve a puzzle to figure out what to do next.
So you'll come across an obstacle. And then what happens when you say solve a puzzle? Is the puzzle a part of the ship, or is it like, are there any sections that are on land? How does that all work?
I wouldn't say on land specifically, but in the buildings that are left in this flooded world that you're left in as the only human, apparently.
So that's the setup. You're the only human left on the planet. And is your goal to find other humans or just to survive?
I don't know. Your goal is to move to the right.
That's it.
The game is very minimalistic. Like, other than the tutorials, there's no text at all.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So no instructions either, as far as
I mean,
like
there's
telling
a
you how to.
tutorial basically like, here's how to jump, here's how to interact with stuff, and that's about it.
When you say jump, does the ship jump?
No, you can jump when you're outside.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you do leave the ship at times.
Yeah.
And then what happens when you leave the ship? Does it still stay in like a 2D perspective? How does that
Yeah.
all work?
It's basically just a 2D platformer when you're outside the ship.
Okay.
And generally you either like pull some stuff out of the way, or you need to add some stuff to your ship in order to bypass an obstacle.
So your ship stops, you have to basically disembark, and then you solve a little puzzle, then you get back on the ship and the ship can go forward.
Yeah.
Okay. And what about the ship itself? Is it kind of the main character in the game, or is it actually the
Yeah, the ship is what changes the most. Your player character is basically just you, kind of like a generic thing that you move around while you're trying to sail from left to right.
So it's just an avatar essentially.
Yeah.
Okay. Um and then you said that like the ship changes. How does that work?
You start off swimming, and then you eventually find the ship that's basically a sailboat boat to start with.
Mm-hmm.
And then you add stuff to it. You add a steam engine so you can go in parts where you can't do your sail, or when it's not windy. You eventually get turned into a submarine where you can dive up and down.
I'm guessing that changes everything at that point. That's like the paradigm shift for the game, right?
Kind of. You're still going left and right, only you occasionally go up and down.
Okay. But there's this whole world underneath the ocean that you couldn't see before, right?
Not really. You can still swim down whenever you want.
Oh, okay. So you can leave the ship whenever you want, essentially.
Yeah.
It's not at like these predetermined points where there's an obstacle in the way.
Yeah, occasionally you'll just like search things. One of the main things that you're trying to do when you're just going along is you find fuel for the steam engine once you unlock it.
Mm-hmm.
Various, like some of it's fuel, and then there's other random stuff that's just like pieces of the world. Like early on, you find a plant, and eventually you can water it and make it grow, or you can toss it in the furnace to burn it. Both of those are achievements.
That would be very mean. The last plant on Earth, and you throw it into the fire to use for fuel.
Yeah, I mean,
what happens if you keep raising the plant? Does it grow really big on the ship?
I assume. I didn't find that because I burned it because I didn't realize that's what it was.
Oops. That's pretty funny. Does the game have other things like that you can do where you can make decisions and it could be a boon or it could be a bust?
Not really. I mean, like you basically are just finding stuff. Like there's some music boxes around the way. Mm-hmm. It's all about environmental storytelling. Like in some of the places you'll go, you'll find like various images that are clearly pointing in towards something is going on in this world, either probably before it all flooded and stuff happened.
Now, what do you eat? How do you survive? Are there survival mechanics?
No.
In the game at all? No.
Other than just collecting the fuel, and that's not really a challenge at all either.
Yeah. So they don't even explain how he just stays on this boat and never eats anything and just survives somehow.
Yeah.
And so at the beginning of the game, they don't state a goal at all. It's just like you start here in the water and you swim to the sailboat and off you go.
Yeah.
Wow. How does the game play? Do the mechanics work well? Do the ship mechanics work okay? Do you feel like you're in control?
So when you're on the ship sailing from place to place, it's in this weird middle ground where like you're just a lot of waiting as you go from place to place. You're supposed to like admire the view and stuff. Mm-hmm. But on the other hand, you also have to pay at least a little bit of attention to how your sails are oriented, so you're getting the most wind, or making sure your steam engine doesn't overheat and you keep adding fuel to it. But it's not really a challenge as much. It's just that you have to pay attention, but it's not challenging.
So it's kind of like a ship management sim. Would that be accurate?
In the very, very loosest sense.
Okay.
Yeah, like you have to manage when you get to the submarine, you have to move it up and down. But
you mean as far as the controls are concerned, you just move it up and down? Can you control the speed as well?
Yeah, I mean, when you have the steam engine, you have a slow speed and a fast speed, and that's about it.
Okay. Does it gain steam over time? Meaning, like, the farther you go without hitting an obstacle, does it get faster and faster, or does it just stay at those speeds?
It just stays the speed as far as I can tell.
Okay. What is sort of the antagonist in the game, if there is one? Is it the ocean?
I guess it's the world.
The
I
world?
There isn't much. What the story is, you just go to the right and you do whatever it wants you to do to get past the next obstacle.
But there's very little pushback or agitation.
Yeah. I mean, there are a couple storms that one early wreck doesn't really wreck your ship, but it takes you off, but you have to go a couple screens over to go back to it again.
Oh, it knocks you off the ship and then you have to swim
Yeah.
back to the ship. Gotcha. And is that about as bad as the peril is in the game?
Yeah.
So it's basically kind of like not a walking simulator, but kind of like a boating simulator.
That'd
Sailing
be kind.
simulator?
Yeah.
In the game's visuals, it's a 2D game, and as you said, it just scrolls to the right. But the game's graphics are built out of polygons, right?
Yeah, it's all very 3D. Like, it actually was one situation near the end where, like, my ship got stuck on something as I was trying to put it in a certain place, and it was acting like it was 3D. Like, I couldn't go to the back of the ship instead of the forward part of it. So there's clearly something going on with the 3D part, but not really any important way.
Is this game long? How much time have you spent with it?
I beat it in about 4 or 5 hours.
Oh, so it's not that long at all.
Yeah.
And what are they selling the game for?
It's $20 or it's on Game Pass.
Oh, so it's free on Game Pass this month. And $20, that sounds about right to me, but how do you feel?
I feel like I mean, there isn't much gameplay to it. You're basically playing it for the environment and to relax.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Does it work? Did you feel relaxed while you were playing it?
You can't just like sit out on the deck of the ship and just watch, because then your sail's gonna go move. It's like it's in that weird gray area where it clearly wants you to relax, but you can't relax because you just try to sit and wait, then you won't be moving fast.
So you're controlling, let me get this right. You're controlling the direction of the ship up and down. You're controlling the speed of the ship, and you're controlling the sails. How do the sails work? And is there anything beyond the sails that you also have to take control of? All the fuel, I guess. You have to put fuel in the steam engine. Yeah,
basically the sail, you just, whenever it happens, you need to push the mast up, bring down the sail rope, and then adjust the direction of the sail using a slider.
Okay.
It's all
Is that to catch the wind? Because the wind's going. Oh, okay. So there's a wind mechanic in this.
As in, like, you move the sail, like the slider on the deck of the ship, left and right until it gets into the right area where it's the secondary sail furls and it says it's going fast, basically.
Okay. How often does the wind direction change? Like, once you figure it out, are you pretty much good for a while?
Not surprisingly a lot.
Okay.
Like maybe you'll get into a place, and then you'll go and try to just sit on the front of the deck and wait, and then it'll adjust a little, so you have to go back and do it, and then
you have to babysit it a little bit.
Yeah.
Interesting. Now, so you said it's $20. What all platforms is this for?
Everything.
It's Switch as well?
Yeah.
But it's free on Game Pass. Would you recommend that someone buy this for $20 if they have one of the other platforms?
Again, I think the game is good at what it does, but it's hard for me because I'm not sure it's what I'm in the market for when I'm playing a game as much. I enjoyed it, but...
So would you disagree with its Metacritic score right now? Would you say it's a little too high?
I mean, maybe I give it maybe an 8, and I think it's like an 8.5 or something.
Okay, so not too far off then.
Yeah.
So you did enjoy it a good bit, despite the fact that it's a genre that you typically don't enjoy a ton, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Vincent. Well, thank you for talking with us about Far Changing Tides, and we'll talk to you soon. All right, so there you go. Far Changing Tides. Matt, what do you think after checking that out?
It looks cool, but like...
Think you'll play it?
Is it on Game Pass?
It is, yeah.
Maybe. I don't know. I like the aesthetic, but like I feel like I've played enough tiny character platformers in my day. And it kind of reminds me, because of the boat, reminds me of Spiritfarer. And then that mostly just made me think, oh, I should go back to Spiritfarer because I never finished that.
Well, when I was cutting this, I had to blow up the preview frame in the editing program so I could see the little dude
guy.
and see what he was doing to try to make sure I was showing stuff that actually was like relevant. So I understand that. My big issue right now is that there's just so many other games and they're not going to stop. They're coming all month long. So maybe in April I'll go back and give it a play, but it is sitting at an 8.5 Metacritic. That's impressive. I wish I had drafted that instead of the next game we're going to talk about.
I forgot you picked this. I do remember thinking that was a bonkers pick, but...
Well, we're going to talk about Babylon's Fall, the hot new game as a service from Platinum Games, the developer that we all love and we can usually rely on to make great hack and slash games. Right, Matt? So I look back on the thing on like kind of their output. I haven't liked anything Platinum's made since Automata. Really?
Like I think I just don't. They leave me pretty cold for the most part.
I mean, I would agree that they haven't made a great game.
But you liked Astral Chain way more than I
do. Like Astral Chain. I still like it. I still go back and play it sometimes. And in fact,
I can't even imagine doing that.
Really?
Yeah.
It's one of the few old Switch games that I actually downloaded onto my new Switch OLED.
Oh, never.
Yeah.
Never. I
like the combat system in that game.
I mean, well, look, it has way more interesting ideas than this does.
Yes.
That's for sure.
No doubt about that. Babylon's Fall, this, Matt, could this end Platinum Games? Is it that bad? I mean...
It may be all they deserve in the end. This game is terrible.
Wow.
Like, just... Like, shockingly so.
Yep.
Like, I was not ready for how bad this is.
Me either. Particularly a game from Platinum. It is a... Let's just give them the bullet points here. It is a up to four player, cooperative, online, hack and slash, action RPG.
Game as a service.
And I will say this.
That doesn't even try to hide any of that shit.
No, not at all. And there are some pay to win elements in this as well. I will say this. This game gave me Phantasy Star Online vibes for many reasons. One is that it looks and feels like it was created in 1999.
Yeah, there are elements of this that remind me of Vagrant Story on PS1. And I don't mean that as a compliment. I like Vagrant Story.
Yeah.
But like some of the character models in this are embarrassing.
We're gonna pause on some of these here in a minute.
They keep showing them like close up, and you're like, why are you doing that? Like they show like close up shots of objects that are like they're blurry.
They look like a PS2 game. And we're not even exaggerating. Some of the graphics in this really do look like they're from a PlayStation 2 game. I wouldn't be surprised if this game was in development like all the way back then.
Even that, it's like, okay, yeah, fades to white, I guess. But there's a lot of readability issues in this game, too. Like the fact that the text tends to be like brown and bronze, and most of the environments are brown and bronze, so you can't read it sometimes.
Look at that dude's hair on the right.
Yeah.
It's literally just a texture pasted on his face.
Like there's not even trying to make it sit right.
It's so bad. I have not seen a game that looks this bad, and I can't tell you how long. I mean, other than like on 3DS or whatever, where they're limited by the hardware. The setup of this game...
Well, even like just the difference between like the quality of the textures on like his armor and like the ground.
Yeah.
Like they don't look like they belong in the environments are so bad, it doesn't look like the characters, even though they don't look good either. Doesn't look like they belong in the world.
Yeah. The setup is that you are brought on this ship to this place, and they essentially install these things on your back, and only select people will survive the installation.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
What makes a lot of sense?
Ashes in the Hourglass says that Imran Khan said this started as a new Drakengard game before Square changed their mind and made Platinum turn it into a gas. Which, this does look like Drakengard. And Drakengard has always kind of had this sort of aesthetic and this sort of, I mean, I could see it. I could see this being like a shoveled out Drakengard 4 kind of thing. But instead you graft all this online stuff onto it and like, oh, yeah.
Well, look at the tassels there on that one girl's like skirt. When she laid down, they didn't lay down. They just stuck out like they were made out of concrete. Like, this game is just wow. I am shocked at how bad this game looks. Now let's talk about how it plays. When I first started playing this game, I thought that it played as poorly as it looked. And that's when I texted you,
That would
Matt.
be my assessment of it, yes.
And that's when I texted you, Matt, and was like, oh my God, this game is so bad. And then I did keep playing it. And I will say this, like, it started to grow on me a little bit over time. Like, I felt like after I got past, like, the 2-hour mark and I started really kind of building my character, it became more interesting and the combat felt better. But it still doesn't feel great.
Not good. Yeah.
It just felt better. But typically how it works is you
just get to a point where it's like, oh, I guess I can see why you would think this would be okay to charge
release
money for in a certain frame of mind after a certain amount of alcohol.
Yeah. Basically how it works is you have like a little hub area that has the typical things in a hub. You can go to a merchant and buy stuff. You can upgrade your gear, all that kind of stuff.
This usual like hub thing with icons everywhere.
Yep.
It's just
and you have like a little room with your chest where you keep your items and your inventory. It's all very rote.
It never tells you where that is.
Yeah,
and it bugs you about your inbox for like 10 minutes. Oh, that was great too, where it's just like, here's how you dodge. We're gonna put up a little QTE thing that's the same color as the rest of the fucking environment so fast you can't, and then you gotta redo it. It's like so dumb. So dumb. Like just the basic onboarding is hopeless. It's
again, that's why I said if you get
and this
through,
like what is the camera doing?
Get stuck behind the object.
You constantly can't see what's happening. I hate this game.
Yeah.
Like I really, especially because like I had to stop playing Elden Ring to play this, and then I switched to Gran Turismo, and I just never went back again.
Maybe that's why you liked Gran Turismo so much, because you were coming off of this.
That certainly probably helped. Anything would be like.
Yeah. So you start in the hub, you go up to like a bulletin board.
I also couldn't figure out the fucking the ranking stuff. Like sometimes I get a stone badge, sometimes I get a pure platinum badge. I don't know. I get it.
Yeah.
It's just a scoring thing, but I can't tell why I'm doing better.
Yeah. So anyway, you start in this hub world. You go up to a bulletin board. You decide what mission you want to take, and then it'll matchmake you. Matt, you did not have luck matchmaking, or you didn't try?
I didn't really try.
You didn't try?
I didn't want to commit to something for that long. And I was like, oh, nah.
Well, I did. I played a ton of games with
also, I was having the
players.
LAN cable disconnection thing on this one.
Oh, okay.
Where like the PS5 has a thing where
it wouldn't stay online.
It'll just say LAN cable disconnected, reconnected, disconnected, reconnected.
I feel so lucky to not have that problem.
Yeah, it's individual console to individual console. I can usually fix it. It's not that you quit out of the. Quit out of the game, but you go back to the menu and it kind of fixes itself. You can wiggle the thing in the back. There's a bunch of different weird solutions. Like it got better once I like forcibly updated the OS through the safe mode update. But like I can't even tell what's happening here. All characters just mush together.
That's because it's all blurry, and
everybody's the same color and everything looks.
Everything's drab.
There's no distinctive anything between it, and even these guys are just like.
The art's okay on this.
The art's okay, but it's just the most generic crap. It's just like, okay, it's a big armored guy with glowing blue stuff
and
in
horns,
him. Like, who cares? Okay, like never seen that before. Like,
yep. So anyway, once you join up with 3 or 4 players, or actually you can do it by yourself, and it's a lot harder if you try to go through missions on your own. Generally, each mission is split up into 4 sections. So the first 3 are just fighting rank and file enemies, and they're like arena battles. You get to the arena, like this magical wall appears, it traps you in the arena. You have to clear all the enemies from the arena, then the walls disappear and you can move on to the next one. And then usually the 4th stage is a boss fight. There aren't really team-up attacks per se, where you kind of join up and you like amplify each other's power or anything like that. You're pretty much just fighting on your own, even though people are fighting alongside you. And that's pretty much the game. Again, this is why it reminds me a lot of Phantasy Star Online. Because you were saying you were afraid of the commitment. The commitment actually is really low. Like, you can get through the 4 sections of each level in probably 10 minutes, I'd say. Maybe even less if you're playing with good players. So it is kind of like bite-sized. And you don't have to play Melee. I know that I did because it's a Platinum game. And that's typically what I respect Platinum for. But there are ranged weapons in the game that you can use. And then really the twist to the combat is, what are they called? Gideon arms or something?
Gideon drive or Gideon R. Yeah, I don't know.
So you can
another stupid anime name for a thing that nobody would ever call this thing that like Gideon. Fine, I think that's a reference to some mythological thing probably, but like it's the other word they use for it doesn't make any sense.
So those things that you're seeing behind the character, that's what we're talking about.
The little backpack thing.
Yeah, and it's then essentially you can assign whatever weapon or shield you want to those slots, and it will turn them basically into supers. Yeah. Which is kind of cool.
You have 2 standard weapons and 2 super weapons.
Yeah,
basically.
And it's kind of cool that anything that you put in there will be turned into like this special thing.
You definitely see on paper why it looks like a good idea.
Yeah. Until then you use it.
Although I should note that the character I started with just had 4 long swords.
Oh, really?
As her default weaponry. I had to go through a couple levels to get some actual different stuff.
Uh-huh. As you can see, you can also pick stuff up and hurl it. And there's a parry system. Like there's average parries and like close parries, and that will stun the enemy and allow you to unload.
There's a witch time system, basically.
Hell of a lot easier than Elden Ring. I'll say that much. Hitting those windows is a lot easier in Babylon's Fall.
I think the dodging is broken in this.
Really?
I found it very hard to tell.
I just clicked with it right away.
No, I found it very hard to tell when an attack was coming at the right time. It was in the dodging, like there seemed to be no pattern to like dodging one way or the other versus like getting out of the way of the attack. Like
I'd agree with that. Yeah.
I don't know. Like coming off of Elden Ring doesn't help here because the combat in this is garbage compared to that. It's just awful. You want to talk about not being able to cancel out of shit?
Yeah.
Like this thing doesn't let you cancel out of anything.
It gets way easier than Elden Ring. Like the window to roll and dodge is way wider than in Elden Ring. The punishing isn't anywhere near as bad. Like it's a typical action adventure hack and slash where you can take 20 hits before you finally die, and
oddly the health potions are more limited.
Yeah.
You get like 5 per level. I mean, not that you ever really need them all unless you're playing solo.
Yeah, I hardly ever even use them at all. And if you play with other humans, you use them even less. Because like I was playing with people who had been playing for a long time, and the first time I played with other people, I ended up getting left in the dust. Like they knew where they were going, and I'm like, wait a minute, there's this chest over here, and I probably need, and they were gone. And by the time I catched up to them, they were already in the next arena, and I was trapped outside the arena, like looking in. There was one time where I was running right behind him, and that happened to me. The wall just appeared right before I got into the arena. And I was trapped and had to watch them fight.
Usually in games like that, they'll just teleport anyone who's not in yet into where the action's happening.
Yep.
That's very
But not
strange.
in this. For whatever weird, goofy reason, it trapped me outside. Now, I did get all the rewards, oddly enough, from that fight, even though I did not fight at all. But I was still collecting all the stuff that they were basically getting out of the enemies as they killed them. So I still got the rewards for the mission, even though I did absolutely nothing. And here is the hub world we were talking about. This is like the little overworld that you go to between your bouts out on the interwebs with other people. It's pretty lifeless and dead, but it has all the necessities, essentially, that you see in every game like this. That's really what this game is. It's just the most generic game as a service ever. Like the plot, I was talking about it earlier. You're part of this group of people who can survive having these things installed onto your back. There's like dozens of you at the beginning of the game. Only like 3 of you survive. And those are the 3 that you keep seeing in the cutscenes. There's these goofy cutscenes that happen back at the hub area. It's not a good game. Its Metacritic, when I checked yesterday, was like a 4.1, which makes it, without a doubt, the absolute worst fantasy draft pick in our video game fantasy league ever. No one has ever other than games that didn't come out and got zeros, no one has ever drafted a game that got a 4. Now, it is my second alternate, and I'm hoping that I don't have to use it at all, but I will wear the scarlet letter as having made the worst draft pick in Sifted Video Game Fantasy League history. Period. There's no disputing it. I do not think it's a 4. I will say that. I will say this. The first hour, 2 hours, I thought it was a 4. I thought maybe it was worse than a 4. As I stuck with it and my character started leveling up and I got better gear and I started playing with better people, I started to, I hate to admit it, I did start to enjoy it a little bit. Maybe because of its simplicity? I don't know. But I did find it moderately entertaining eventually. And so I would not if I were to review it, I would not give it a 4.
How come everybody else has better clothes than you do?
Because they've been playing a long time. This is what I'm talking about. This is my very first time playing online. And they run away from me.
When you complete the first mission, you get a trophy that pops up that says, the first of many. I'm just like, a bold assumption, sir.
That's very optimistic on your part to assume I'm going to unlock more trophies. I did kind of stick with it. I don't know why. Well, see, look, right there it happened to me. Now I'm stuck outside the arena.
That is weird.
And I was running right behind them. And I was just stuck outside.
Was there a button prompt there?
I don't know.
It looked like there was a button prompt there for circle button. Maybe that would like pop you in there.
Let's see. See what happens here. So they run in.
Yeah, there's a circle button. I bet if you press circle there, you'll go through that barrier and help.
Where's the prompt at?
Right over his head. See?
Oh.
The UI in this is so hard to fucking see because everything's brown.
It's still weird that they would trap me outside.
No, it's weird that they wouldn't just automatically do that.
I was running right next to them, and it trapped me outside the arena. It's so weird. But again, this is not a great game. I'm not saying this game is good. I'm saying it's probably a little better than a 4.
You're saying that at a certain point the Stockholm Syndrome kicks in, and maybe you don't think it's so bad for a while.
And as you can see, there's loot that you collect in chests, and there's, stuff that you can, like, resources that you can collect. But, again, it's just everything that you've done in all these games before and done it better in other games. That's probably the best way I could describe it. But I don't think it's completely worthless.
It's sitting at a 41 on Metacritic and a 2.2 user score. So, yeah, I feel like maybe Square will learn their lesson on making games as a service at this point. There's 3 that haven't really worked out for them.
Yeah.
So
Andy T. Monahan, people have a lot of feelings about this because it's Platinum, and so people are like, what's going on over there? Andy T. Monahan says, you go from Transformers, Turtles in Manhattan, Legend of Korra, Astral Chain. This developer has no direction. Well, they're a developer. The problem is they're a developer for hire. They don't have control of their direction generally. And
letting Square make all the calls on something is inevitably going to lead you to some dark places.
Yeah.
So.
And you're right. Like, every game that you list is not good. I mean, Astral Chain I like. But Legend of Korra, bad. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game, not terrible, but not good.
Yeah,
Transformers game, not terrible, not good.
Yeah, I like the aesthetic and what they're doing in the Transformers, but I thought that combat system was just the most repetitive crap, and it doesn't use the transformation properly. It's just like, okay, so like Optimus Prime can just turn into a truck and ram somebody in the middle of a combo in midair. Like, I thought Devastation was dumb.
It was dumb, but it was still dumb fun.
Yeah, I mean, I like seeing them do Menasor and Devastation. Like, it was cool, like seeing what they did aesthetically and depicting things and like getting kind of a lot of the old voice actors and stuff. But as a game, I found it incredibly bland. Mm-hmm. And especially in grindy, like once you finish those 5 levels, you're supposed to play that over and over and over and over and over and over until you randomly get the loot drops you need to get the next difficulty, which is then gonna just make you randomly grind over and over. Like, why? Like, why would I do that? What is fun about that? I don't get it.
Yeah.
Only 5 characters. There's no like appreciable difference between some of them. Like, it's just, I don't care.
People are already giving you the Fantasy League, Matt.
I mean, if it was just came down to picking Elden Ring, sure.
Well, there's a long way to go, people. It's not
I mean,
over yet.
you don't have 2 zeros yet?
No, I have 1. Although they still haven't announced that game's been delayed out of the year.
What?
Suicide Squad Kill Justice League.
Oh yeah.
That still hasn't been announced by WB that it's been delayed. So I'm still holding out a little bit.
Then I still think Breath of the Wild is
dicey. I said that when I drafted it, and you told me I was crazy.
I thought they would get it out this year.
I didn't feel comfortable doing it, but honestly, if it comes out, like, it can get a 9.7 just like Elden Ring. It could get a perfect 10 across the board. It's Nintendo. It's not over yet. Paul Edward, 1979. I'm worried about Bayonetta 3. Do you think they should be? I do not.
I'm a little bit, just because Platinum's so inconsistent. I mean, do I think it could be this bad? No
way. What a travesty that would be.
Nintendo in general that's also that's the same stupid circular prompt that I didn't see.
You have to use there's a grapple thing.
Yeah, the grapple thing, which they explain terribly.
They do. And you can
then
never see the icon where you're supposed to use it.
And then they pop it up sometimes when they're like, don't forget to do this. And I'm like, where? And there's nothing there.
Uh-huh.
But like one time they popped it up and it was like right near this like a bunch of spikes and there was a swinging chandelier over it. I'm like, but it's not. It wasn't one of the things you can grapple onto. It's just there's a swinging chandelier over it. You're supposed to jump over that. It's so bad. It's so poorly communicated and poorly everything. It's poorly everything.
It is one of the worst games I have played in a really long time. But 4, that's pretty brutal, man. That means it has like no redeeming values, pretty much.
I mean, I'm fine saying that.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't played it as much, but also like I don't see any reason to. There's especially this month. There's so many other things to play that are infinitely better. Like, like you're going to sit there and say like, oh, you should put another couple hours into this game instead of going back to Elden Ring or Horizon or Gran Turismo. Like, no.
Yeah.
No.
Well, I didn't tell you to.
No, but if someone else was, it's like no.
Yeah.
Like in the deadest month of the deadest year, maybe this might be better than staring at the wall. But that's about it. And not for $70 or whatever it is.
The other thing too about this game, did you notice how like the PC cursor will come up on the console version of the game?
Yeah.
It'll be up in the corner of the screen.
Yeah. Like
What
you're
the
in
hell?
load screens and stuff, yeah.
Oh my gosh. What is going... So I can understand why some people are a little nervous about Bayonetta 3 right now. Because it's like there's just so many obvious mistakes in this game.
Also, you're going to pop up 2 tutorial windows to explain what jumping is, but you're not going to tell me how the loot system works?
I know, they don't tell you.
What is that?
And the first time I used the loot system, I gave everything away.
Right. Yeah.
Did you do that?
No, but I saw that one of the buttons did that. I'm just like, that's misleading. Like,
And I didn't know until it's like, oh, you just gave everything away. I'm like, what? I want that.
Because you can't tell, like, because one is the button, like the revealing everything seems a lot similar to just selling everything.
Yeah.
It's dumb.
Yeah. What do you think this is impact this is gonna have on Platinum?
I don't know. I mean, like, I'd hope that like people would, other publishers or whatever would realize that like, okay, you're dealing with probably their C team doing work for hire for Square, which doesn't even know what they want half the time. I mean, Crystal Dynamics couldn't pull off a decent Avengers game as a service with Square calling the shots. What makes you think Platinum's like farm team is going to pull that off with this generic crap?
What do you think happened? So Platinum's been lobbying Microsoft to start working on Scalebound again. If Phil Spencer plays this, you think he gives it to him?
I mean, I would have to imagine that Microsoft knows what Scalebound looks like already, and you already know that Scalebound is better than what you're looking at here just from the demos they've done. I'm not saying Scalebound looks great, but like, I don't know. Also, it seems like a lot of Scalebound's ideas have been reincorporated into Bayonetta 3 with the giant monster fights and stuff.
Yeah, the kaiju stuff. Yeah, it does.
So we'll see. Like, I would like Bayonetta 3 to be good because I like what they're after there.
Yeah.
But yeah, this doesn't even look like the same game.
Just what I'm talking about. Like, I think we're off camera before we started talking about this. You were like, oh, I could tell it was going to be terrible. I'm like, how? Like, because the game looks completely different in these trailers.
This still looks bad to me. Like, not visually bad necessarily, but like it still looks like the most generic garbage. Like just whacking things with a stick. Who cares? It does not. From these trailers, you do not get the impression that it's going to look like it looks. You know?
So they're supposed to be this weird kind of like mosaic stained glass art style to it. When you play the game, you can't tell it's there at all.
And the other thing is like all these like little extra moves, like the grapple to them, all that stuff. Like you can't do any of that at the beginning.
No.
Like that's the other weird thing is like usually Platinum stuff. Like there's upgrades and stuff, but you usually start with most of the combat systems sort of in place, and you just have to learn how to use it effectively. In this, it's just sort of like, oh no, like because it's a loot-driven thing. You have to get the right weapons to do things. You got to unlock things for whatever the Gideon thing is.
It feels like this marketing is like deceptive. Watching this now after playing it, like it literally feels like it's like fake.
A little bit, like it. I mean, I'm sure
it got me. Obviously, I drafted it as my second alternate.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, obviously we didn't think it was going to be a 4, but like this never looked much like And also, it could have been a thing where I thought it was going to be like a 6 or at a 10 or so, but it would still get 8s in the reviews because it's Platinum and nobody knows anything anymore.
Yeah.
But no, I'm glad we all saw through the bullshit on this one.
I didn't, though.
Well, once you played it, you did.
Oh, of course, yeah. But, like, I was fooled by the trailers, absolutely.
I guess.
The game looks nothing like this.
No.
It's crazy. Yeah.
I mean, it's all here, but it's like,
It doesn't look like that.
No, like what ended up in the game. It's like, I don't know. It's like, it's like you got catfished or something.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah,
It's
that's
just
a good way to put it.
like, wait, you don't look like your photo.
Yeah, so
You don't have nearly as agile red tendrils as your profile made it look like you have.
Yeah, so that's Babylon's Fall.
Just watching this is already more engaging than the opening cutscene.
Yeah, I'm still not sure exactly what the story is. Like, you're just these warriors who can survive these things being installed on your back.
Yeah,
they're sending you in to collect stuff for something.
You're going because it's after the fall of the original Babylon, and they've found Babylon, and they're basically restoring the ziggurat that offended God to the point that he tore it down or whatever.
What is a ziggurat?
Oh, it's like a giant tower.
No.
You know, the thing you're fighting your way through in this is a giant tower. And then, like, the bigger, I guess the moral issue is that, like, there's these blue sun or more than one blue sun at the top of the tower, and it causes this, like, disease that kills people. And so, like, the rich people only go there for brief periods of time and then leave.
Where did you get all this from?
It's a conversation in the bar after the first mission.
Oh, I skipped through it. It was so inane.
Yeah, well, so like basically like the peasants who can't leave like die from like sort of like blue sun cancer, and so the guy in the armor, like, you know, Ishan, the guy in the armor, he like opens his, you don't see it because he opens his, he's like, apparently he's really messed up from the whatever that blue
his
death
face
thing
is all screwed up.
So basically he says like, yeah, if you get to the top of the tower you can destroy the suns and save everybody's life because it will even stop the disease in people who already have the disease. I'm like, I don't think that's how anything works, but okay.
Whatever.
So the ultimate goal seems to be to get to the top and turn off the sun.
Okay. Okay, makes perfect sense. So there you go. That's Babylon's Fall. Neither one of us recommend it.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. It makes a lot of sense that, like, it started as a Drakengard game, because the Drakengard games have always been sort of, like, janky, weird things. With that sort of strange, I don't quite understand. The art style and the world design and kind of the, like, like, that would definitely fit a Drakengard game.
Yeah.
I do actually, I like most of the Drakengard game. I liked 3 okay. I really like 2. Also, they come from a lot of the Nier. Yeah, those are originally made by the Nier team, and they have the same sort of bleak, oh my god, I can't believe that's what the ending is sort of thing. Yeah, there's a lot of horrible shit that happens in those games.
Horrible stuff that happens in this game is just the game itself.
This is it would have been more interesting to see what that Drakengard game would have been.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there's only so much you can do when Square like moves in and decides like, oh, like we want this to be Destiny. Yep. Make it happen. It's like, okay, like you can feel that the dev team doesn't have their heart in that. Yeah. It's just not there.
Yeah. It's not recommended for me, either one of us.
No.
Although I do think after playing a good bit of it, I think the 4 is a little harsh, but does it matter? No. Whether it's a 6 or a 4 or a 5 and a 4, it doesn't matter. It's still, in this month especially, hard to recommend for anyone.
Platinum, they got to figure something out here. Like, they got to, I don't know. I mean, I know you're kind of at the mercy of the contractor when you take on the work for hire, but it's like, you gotta pick better, or you gotta branch out your ability to do more than just swing a sword at things. Like they're good at one thing, and sort of it's a crapshoot whether the rest of it around the combat system is gonna be worthwhile or interesting, and they gotta improve that.
Yeah,
like the consistency is just not there.
They're also often trapped by licenses where your contractor, the person who's assigned you to create the game, is like, this has to come out on X date. And sometimes the game isn't finished, or you have to kind of pull back on the ideas or the concepts that you have for the game to get it done.
I feel like the only explanation for why this game came out when it did is that Square knows it's bad and wants it to be overlooked.
Yeah.
Like, putting it out right now is a guaranteed way to send it to die.
Well, I know this. Getting review code for this game was not easy.
They knew better, huh?
Yeah, so...
Meanwhile, people already have Ghostwire Tokyo.
Yeah, I know.
So
exactly.
That's confidence there.
Right, exactly. So, yeah, with this game, it's like I usually get everything from Square Enix. It's just sent to me. I don't even have to, like, request it. It just shows up in my inbox. And this had not shown up. And so I reached out to my contact at Square Enix who was out of the office, and he's like, oh, I'll contact the agency and they'll send it to you or whatever. Next day passes. I got
we are not from your country.
I got an
we do not know what you mean.
I got an email that said you are under consideration for review code of whatever, and we'll get back to you soon about whether we're going to give you one or not. And I just forwarded it to my buddy, and I was like, "This is what they replied with." And 10 minutes later, he sent me a code. He's like, "Here you go." So, yeah. Notice there were no reviews of this game either on launch day.
No,
none. Yep. So that, as always, is never a good sign. Anytime a game comes out and there are no reviews for it, always wait for at least one review. Preferably multiple reviews. All right, let's move on. We're going to talk next.
It still only has 12 reviews.
It has 12?
Only 12.
Yeah. I do wonder how much content is in the game. I played it.
Gamers Heroes gave it an 80.
I played a good bit of it. I never got to any of the stuff that was shown in that trailer.
No.
Like, I never had crazy attacks. I never fought bosses that were, like, 4 stories tall. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure they're in there somewhere, but...
I don't recall ever disliking a game so heavily only to fall in love with it moments later.
Oh.
That's the positive one. Weird.
I mean, I could understand a little bit of that. I thought it was one of the worst games I'd ever played for the first hour or two. And then it was only just one of the worst games I ever played after a couple hours. So, yeah. All right, we got to move on. And we're going to do that. And we're going to talk about...
This year's Balan Wonderworld.
It is kind of. But I will say this, Matt. I would much rather play Babylon's Fall than Balan Wonderworld. Way more.
I think I'll just play Elden Ring and call it a day.
Right, exactly. I'll just play something I want to play, period. Anyway, we're going to talk next about a Switch console exclusive strategy RPG called Triangle Strategy. It was originally called Project Triangle, and everyone was like, that's a really dumb name. And then they just
go back to Project Triangle.
And then they just doubled down, and they ended up calling it Triangle Strategy. It is created by the same developer that has created, using the same exact art style, I would add.
Yeah, there's definitely a consistency here.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's their house style at this point.
I mean, I like it. I don't mind. But there is an element of, like, I think a lot of people assume these games are all connected somehow.
They're not.
But they are not.
They're not. Yeah, they're separate universes, separate everything. So, yeah, it looks like Octopath Traveler.
Yeah, I mean, they all look like Final Fantasy Tactics. Like,
they do.
That's what they come from.
And I would compare this game to Final Fantasy Tactics in a number of ways.
I think it's very much a descendant.
I think it's trying to be Final Fantasy Tactics because have you been playing this, by the way?
No.
Okay. So the plot is very much like Final Fantasy Tactics.
It looks like it. The names look like Final Fantasy Tactics.
So a big crux of the plot is that in this world, salt is worth like gold. For whatever reason.
So that's our world.
What?
I mean, that was true back in the day.
That actually, you're right. It is weird how
Roman
certain spices and things like that were
Roman
worth
soldiers
so much.
were paid in salt.
And Final Fantasy Tactics has a similar angle in its world, where these resources that you would just take for granted today are actually now very valuable in this world.
As my history teacher always said, if a portal opens in your living room and you're going to get sucked back into medieval times, and you can only have time to grab one thing, you grab the spice rack.
Really?
And you are set for life. Like, the amount of cinnamon in one bottle of cinnamon today would make you the richest man in town.
That's insane.
Because look, most of certainly in the West, most of human trade, especially in Europe, has been dedicated to making food not taste terrible.
Or actually have some flavor.
Yeah. Well, I mean, most of the meat was slightly rotted, so they're putting a lot of salt on it covered that up.
Yeah.
Like, that was, like, imagine living your life eating like British food, and then suddenly someone gives you salt.
Oh my gosh. It'd make your mouth catch on fire.
Or cloves or garlic, anything,
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yep. So anyway,
you think that wouldn't be a problem in a world where you can, like, cast fireball, but, like, whatever.
Wait, there's no damn salt. Or there's a big ocean right there where you can
just pull some water out.
Or honestly, just let it
That's
dry.
what all the mages would be doing. Would they just be, like, dehydrating ocean water to get salt out of it? That's a pretty
honestly, sea salt is way better than regular salt as well. So you actually would have the best salt possible. But anyway, return to this fictional world with me, Mr. Kyle, where salt is worth gold and
But what does it feel like to touch the salt?
Yeah, exactly.
Is it moist?
And marriages are arranged, and that's how this game starts off. You play as you're playing as a prince.
How much salt does a marriage cost? I bet that's a lot of salt.
No, actually, I don't think there's any exchange of salt with the wedding vows.
No?
They're trying to...
Depends how happy you are with the match, I guess. I'd be salty.
They're trying to basically form a truce, because the term triangle strategy refers to the 3 different territories that are in the game that had been at war up until 30 years ago. Now they're all trying to figure out how they're going to peacefully coexist. One of the territories is the only territory that has salt. So it has...
That would be a very important territory.
Right, exactly. So it kind of has the upper hand. There's a lot of political intrigue in this game. Too much. Honestly. There are just rungs and rungs and rungs of script in this game. There's hardly any fighting. It honestly feels like a visual novel more than it feels like a strategy RPG.
I mean,
the fighting
I
is
that.
so infrequent.
I wonder, it probably gets more later.
I've played a good bit of it, man.
Yeah, but these games are 100 hours long.
I don't know how long this one is, but I'm probably 15 hours into it, something like that. I mean, I've played a lot of it because it's a handheld game, and I've been playing it while the wife watches TV or whatever at night after I've played all the other stuff on the TV or whatever. And it is a great handheld game because it's a turn-based strategy game, and those work great on handheld because you can just pause it whenever you want and you're good to go. But it is really light on combat, and you'll complete a skirmish. Matt, I'm not exaggerating. After that, you will watch an hour of story, an hour, and nothing happens. They just stand there, and every once in a while, one of them will turn their head.
I'm sure every once in a while one of them pops up and down.
Oh, yeah,
because
yeah.
they're upset about something.
Right, yeah. They'll jump up and down or something. And that's it. It's like you're staring at a static screen. Honestly.
I mean, that's what people who like Final Fantasy Tactics want, I think.
Maybe. This could be the first ever game on tape. I'm not kidding. There's hardly any voice acting, because there's just... The script is gigantic. I don't know how they couldn't voice it all. Although this is a $60 game. It's a full price game. And they're asking full price for this. There's no voice acting in it. It's literally just reading text on the screen probably 80% of the time you play it. I'm not exaggerating. It's that prevalent. And it's important. So there are choices that you can make in conversations. They do actually affect stuff, surprisingly so. There are 3 endings to the game as well. Then all these decisions that you make lead down that road to the different endings. There are segments of the game where it's kind of free roam. They'll put you out in an environment and you go around and check all the doors and go into the houses and talk to all the people and get in conversations where you make decisions that will affect things later on. But again, the bulk of the game is just spent with people talking. Now, the actual strategy in this game is good. I really like the combat system. So it's very typical grid-based, isometric, whatever. You can control the camera though, which is cool, to give you a better view of where the enemies are and things like that. It can still get a little hard to see who is on what square, but for the most part, you can scroll around until you get a decent view of it. And then the tweaks to it are, if you attack someone from behind, you always get a critical every time, 100%.
Also, Final Fantasy Tactics.
It is. And then another thing is, if you have your party members on each side of an enemy, if you attack from one side, the other side will then follow up as well. And so you can get 2 attacks in, and that all plays into how you're positioning your party members on the battlefield. The magic casting in the game, the area of effect is often a weird shape. And so part of the strategy is trying to get your magic caster to a place on the map where they can then use that range of effect and line it up perfectly with the enemies on the grid for maximum effect. And as you can see, here's some of the decision making that I was talking about earlier. But those little tweaks make a big, big difference. Just the idea of, if you have someone on both sides of the enemy and you attack once, you actually get 2 attacks. That changes everything. If you can completely surround somebody, you can do 4 attacks with just 2 attacks. And a lot of the strategy is built around that. When you get further into the game and the battles start to get harder, you have to do that. And you have to maximize that. So I've played a lot of these games, and I have really enjoyed the combat system and triangle strategy. I just wish there was a lot more of it. What else? There's tons of characters, just like Fire Emblem. There's like too many. It's like I struggled to build relationships with a lot of them, despite the fact that there is no permadeath. At least I did some research after I thought there was no permadeath, and as it turns out, they wanted to put it in at first, and it was in the demo. And people revolted so much from the demo, the free demo that was on the eShop, that they took it out. Which is great. But you can see here how long these conversations go. I mean, there's just like, and they have given you great tools. You can like hit the right bumper and fast forward through the story, and it's really good in that it will stop and hitch just for like a second if it gets to an important piece of dialogue that it thinks you should pay attention to. So it's pretty clever. It's like it knows that you're going to skip through most of the dialogue, but then when there's some sentences that happen that they're like, you know what, you probably need to know this, you'll see it kind of glitch and stop. And then you let off, and you can read that part, and then hold down the bumper again and go through all the other... Because it is very verbose. It's very wordy. And the writing is good, for as much writing as there is, and particularly for a game that was developed in Japan. So the translation team did an excellent job on this. Because it was a lot of work. There's no doubt about it. What else can I tell you about this? Oh, you level your character and the weapons separately, which isn't that out of the ordinary. A lot of RPGs do that.
Very Final Fantasy Tactics.
Yep. And also, if you're
Can
leveling...
you ride chickens?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No, you can't.
Good, because that's pointless.
Also, there are some things that cross over. So sometimes if you level up as your character, it also levels up some of the attributes of your weapon as well. Yeah, character leveling is basically just you use items to level up, again, like kind of like Fire Emblem. And then weapon leveling is basically handled with crafting. What else? The visuals. Like, I know a lot of people really like this art style. I think the art style is okay, but they just don't do enough with it. Most of the time is spent with just a static screen where a character moves its head once every
like. I like the art style, but I do think it works better if it's a more combat heavy game like Octopath Traveler, where like if you're gonna make me watch cutscenes with these characters forever, like I don't think those little chibi characters really are expressive enough for that.
No, it's like, again, like they'll turn their head or whatever, or they'll move like 5 inches on the screen.
Like that's a lot to ask of little chibi characters and static portraits.
Yep, they can't sell it, unfortunately. Again, it is full priced, and that really gives me pause. I don't know if the Advance Wars collection is going to be full price or not.
I think it's 40.
Is it 40?
If I remember, I think it is.
If that's the case, I would absolutely say hold off and don't get this and get the Advance Wars 1+2 reboot or recamp reboot or whatever it's called. Those games are old. You may have played them already, in which case, if you're deciding between that and Triangle Strategy, I would go with Triangle Strategy. I wouldn't recommend that you play the Advance Wars games over this. But for $60, I expect more. I'll be honest with you. Like, I feel like this game should have been priced at $30 or $40 max. I don't want to begrudge them for the art style, but it does feel a little lazy to me.
Advance Wars is 60.
Oh, it is 60. Oh, crap. Okay.
Should have known Nintendo was going for full price on that.
Well, I'll say this. I would still recommend getting Advance Wars.
I mean, I like Advance Wars better than Final Fantasy Tactics to begin with. So
right.
I'm one of the outliers who never liked Tactics.
Yeah.
For some reasons that are clearly not a problem here. Like, I hate the 5-character limit. I hate the height thing. I don't think the height of the terrain thing is done well. That's very important in this game. Yeah, always.
Elevation can completely turn a battle.
But like, you had these things in Tactics where it was like you couldn't find 4 squares in the game that the next to each other that the game really agreed were actually next to each other.
Right.
And like, this seems a little more obvious. I like the fact that like looking at the movement there, that it'll show you which enemies can hit you.
Yep.
From where you're going to move.
That information is good. It's a little hard to see and read at times, though, because I think, again, because of the art style, As I said, they do give you camera control, so you can kind of scroll around to kind of figure out like what is on each square. But it's not easy to pick up on, honestly. Like, it can get a little busy, I guess is the best way to put it, whenever there's a bunch of people on the battlefield and they're trying to tell you, this guy can still reach you from here. There's arrows coming from, like, everywhere. And it can be a little hard to read, but that's not my biggest complaint with the game. Really, my biggest complaint with the game is the price. The story is really good. I'm pretty much sucked into it at this point. I'm glad it's a good handheld game because I will continue to play it until I finish it, I think, eventually. It may take me a while before I get there, but I think I will do it because the story is really good. The writing is really good. And again, this should be the world's first game on tape. I don't feel like I take away all that much from the gameplay because it doesn't happen all that often. It just feels like they're like, oh, wait, we need to make this a video game, and they'll just throw in like a little section of combat.
There's a little bit of that to something, like, was it 13... What was that game?
Was 13 it just 13?
13 Sentinels.
Oh, yeah. Aegis Rim?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was like 80% visual novel and like 20% weird pseudo real-time strategy thing. Like, that was very strange.
There's a lot of reading in this game. And the one thing I would say, though, is like the subtitles are hard to read on a handheld.
Yeah, I would imagine.
They're small, and the text is hard to read at times, too.
Especially with the density of, like, the visuals as well.
Yep.
Like, that, I'm sure that on a small screen, that's a lot harder.
It kind of bleeds in, yeah. But overall, it's a finely crafted game that's very well written. And the combat is great when you get to do it. But I think most people will be like, dang, man, I'm spending a lot of time reading text in this thing.
But if you want a new game of this nature, they don't really make them anymore.
Yeah,
so.
And there's a reason why they don't come along all that often. So, and if you're right, though, if you do want games like this in the future, you might want to support this one, because who else is going to make them? But yeah, $60 for this game, way too much. This is a handheld game, 100%. This would be like released on the 3DS if the Switch didn't exist anymore. It didn't exist, and it should be like $34.99, $30 to $40 max. But it's not. It's a full price game, which was something we did talk about back during the transition away from the 3DS. Is Nintendo now going to start charging full price for games that would have been $34 on the 3DS?
Yeah, because this would have clearly been a handheld game.
Oh, absolutely, and it would have cost $34.99. So
yeah, I think it would have been $40. They were at
were there $40
3DS
games?
Oh yeah.
I thought 34 was the max.
No, there were definitely $39.99 3DS games by the end of the system's life.
I didn't see any of those. But anyway, it is a pretty good game. It's just not worth the money, in my humble opinion. So. Ashes in the Hourglass says it's worth noting that there was a Final Fantasy Tactics remake in the NVIDIA leak. Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
Another one.
But it's like, when is that coming? It could be a long time before that shows up.
I mean,
or if ever.
They've all turned out to be true, really.
They have. Yeah, that leak has been on the money. But that doesn't mean that it's coming anytime soon.
No. If Chrono Cross is real, I'd imagine we'll see that Final Fantasy Tactics by the end of the year.
Yeah, probably so.
You probably don't want to put it out against Triangle Strategy.
Actually, you may be right. I mean, I'm laughing about it, but that may be part of it for sure. Vincent says they moved to 40 in general by the end.
Yeah.
I thought the 40 was the carts that were 3DS XL only, or what was the...
No, those disappeared very soon. The new 3DS stuff, they only made like 5 of those or something.
Yeah.
No, by the end they were. I mean, even the Professor Layton games were 40 by the end of it. Yeah, it was annoying, actually.
I was fortunate. I got all this sent to me by Nintendo right until the bitter end. They were actually still sending me physical copies until the bitter end of 3DS stuff. And then that was it. After
and then,
that,
the ones that came in, like, the boxes with the collector, those were even more.
Yeah.
But, of course, those are worth a lot more now. It's weird.
Yep.
Certainly, Metroid was 40.
Was it?
For sure. And then, like, the collector's one was more, like 50, I think.
What, Return of Samus? Is that what you're talking about? Yeah. So anyway, there you go. That's Triangle Strategy. Switch only. I don't recommend it. And for the last topic of today's show, we're going to discuss Grand Theft Auto 6. What a ride it has been the last 24 hours since we put up the story with Pachter's information. It has been insane, just across the board, in so many ways. It's like, I mean, probably the best way to sum it all up in the end is that people didn't view Pachter as a reliable source. I think that's probably, if you want to sum it up in a sentence of what happened with that information, That's probably it. Everywhere. Pachter's, it's really sad. It makes me sad to think about how people view Michael Pachter, because there's two different things at play with him and with this situation. There's the fact that Michael makes a lot of predictions where he's trying to guess what's going to happen, which none of us are really good at that. And then there's stuff that you are told, which from a source. Those are two entirely different things, but people are conflating them together. They're saying, oh, he predicted the Wii HD, which actually ended up coming true, which is funny that people trot that out. The Wii U is the Wii HD. But anyway, people always trot that out. They're like, oh, he said the Wii HD was coming, and it didn't come. But that was different. That was him just using information to guess what was going to happen. This is a different situation. This is him being given information by somebody who should know what the correct information is. And so it's been sad to me to watch people conflate that together. And like, I hate seeing him getting slagged online for this, because he had no reason to share that information other than like trying to hook us up. There's no upside for him. None. Like, his next call with Take-Two is going to be weird. And he's friends with the CEO. Like, they talk all the time. That next call is going to be weird. He had no motive to share this information. None. The only thing that could have happened was bad. Like, that's it. There was no upside for him. So to everyone to like slag off his information because, oh, he predicted Wii HD and blah, blah, blah. And then there's just other people who are just saying stuff that's just not true. Oh, he predicted that God was going to come down from the sky. Like, just dumb shit like that. So it does bother me that people are going after Pachter and conflating those two things together. I don't know. Maybe he'll someday share the source. I'm not going to.
I would imagine that, like, you know, given like where information tends to come from for these things, like, why would anyone even know the source?
Right.
If he said so.
Right.
Like,
well, I don't think
a lot of people get sources from like someone who, like, you know, is working in some company or whatever, and there's like, what are you going to do? Like, call him? Are you going to like double check? Right?
I don't even mean like name him specifically or her specifically. I mean, say like why the information is trustworthy. Because, and I'm not going to ask him to do that because he shouldn't have to. But if he gets to the point where he's like sick of people slagging him online, which I don't think he ever will, because if he's not sick of it at this point,
never know,
and he doesn't even know because he doesn't go out there and see it. So I don't think he's ever going to tell people exactly what the source is. All I can tell you guys is that he told me what the source is, and I ran it based upon the source. That's it.
Yeah, and I mean, in the end, if GTA 6 gets revealed and it is that,
no one will remember.
No one will care.
And all that's going to happen is that Pachter's going to be slagged online again. I'm going to get slagged online. On my own website, I would add people saying that I oversold it. I literally last week said, don't get too excited. And yet we had information on what is the biggest video game in the world. And if you go back and watch last week's episode, I literally said, it's not that gigantic. Don't like lose your crap over it. And then people were saying I oversold it. I don't know. Anyway, it's been an interesting 24 hours to say the least. Not just out on the wilds of the internet, but also on my own site that I have spent a lot of time, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and a lot of money to build. And there are some spots on my website where I don't feel welcome. And that hurts. People.
In the forums?
You guys think you're doing stuff that I don't see. I see it all. And so I'll just say this. If you want to talk to me about stuff, I do Ask Shane Anything once a month. Show up. You got hard questions you want to ask me? Show up. I'm there. I'm not hiding. You guys send me DMs. I answer them all. Nobody can come to you and say, oh, I sent Shane a DM. He blew me off. I answer them all. So if you guys want to make up stuff about me or about Pachter or about this situation, come on, Ask Shane Anything, be a man, and we'll talk man to man about it. Capiche? So anyway, it has been a trying 24 hours, and not for a lot of the reasons that I would have expected. Like, the wilds of the internet are one thing. Like, I've been dealing with that for 20-some years. It's still disturbing to me that nothing has changed because one thing I will say is, like, on Sifted, it's an oasis. Like, we are kind of protected, and that's what I wanted to create, this place where people could go where they could escape the insanity of the rest of the internet. Now, some of that's starting to seep in a little bit on Sifted, I'll be perfectly honest with you, and that's disappointing to me, but it is still way better than the rest of the internet, and I haven't had to deal with it. Like, I don't really go on Twitter anymore, because I don't have to. I use Sifted. I go on Twitter, and I'm like, this is an effing joke. I'm sorting through a bunch of trash to try to find one thing I like. That's why I created Sifted. So I haven't had to deal with this stuff for a long time. And I think I always assume that over time it may get better, like people will evolve. It's worse.
No.
It's worse. So I went on Reddit last night and posted like the article, and I was full disclosure. I'm like, this is from my website. This is Michael Pachter. He's a financial analyst. He's on CNBC. You may know him, blah, blah, blah. We vetted the source. He told me what the source is. I trust it. Put it up. Banned me. Just banned me. And then the deluge of people from Reddit just telling me we're insane, we're crazy, who is this old guy? It's funny how many people don't have any idea who Pachter is. And I was like, just Google his name. And then like the replies were like, oh, like
that guy.
Yeah, like, but they still didn't know who he was. They just Googled him and saw that he's been on TV like a billion times because there's just all these videos and shots of him on CNBC and all these other networks or whatever. So it's been interesting. But all I'm going to say is, believe me when I tell you that I vetted this stuff before I ran it. And we gave Pachter like a month to decide if he wanted to run it or not. And I kept going back to him and being like, hey, you still want to run this? Hey, you still want to run this? And he's like, yeah, it's solid. Like, run it. So we did our due diligence. Pachter, I can tell you, believes 1,000% that information is accurate. What else can you do? So that's what happened. It did not get picked up.
Some of the chat's asking what the story was.
What story was?
What the story was.
Oh, so people haven't read the story on our webpage or on
I guess
YouTube?
Not.
Oh, interesting. I see someone says Reddit is a sewer. I did not know that until last night, and you are absolutely right. The moderator of the Grand Theft Auto 6 subreddit, how did he ever get that position? I mean, he
created it.
He literally acts like he's like 7 years old.
He created the subreddit, that's all.
I even replied to him. I'm like, I cannot believe that you are the moderator of an online community. He called Pachter a hack. He called me like an asshole or something. I'm like, you're the moderator of this community? What?
Yeah. Well, because he created the subreddit, that's all. Like he was the first person to make that, and that's what caught on. That's
so now he has power.
If you want to call it that.
Right.
Sure.
So anyway, yeah, well, the story is that Grand Theft Auto 6, and this is all according to Michael Pachter in his anonymous source, Grand Theft Auto 6 is going to include Liberty City, Vice City, San Andreas, and Europe/London. All those worlds are going to be connected, so you could possibly do things like run drugs from London to Vice City and have to go through the ports and through the airports. Everything's kind of interconnected. Now, he doesn't have a lot of people are like, that's technically infeasible. And so they're just blowing it off because of that.
So is a lot of stuff Rockstar's done in the past.
Yeah, I mean, that's what Rockstar does.
Rockstar aims for stuff that you think couldn't be possible.
And I'm not even saying that they're doing that here. And don't listen to anything I'm saying in this discussion and be like, oh, Pachter told Shane that, and now he's sharing it with us. No, this is all conjecture based upon what the article states. So anyway, I think a lot of it could be tied into just GTA Online. Like, he also mentioned that the final game could be 400, 500 hours long. What I get from that is that is in totality, meaning after you play the campaign, and then you spend a ton of time in Grand Theft Auto Online.
Or, like, that the world remains a toy after you finish the campaign.
Yeah. Yep.
Or that it becomes GTA Online.
Yeah.
Like, once the campaign's over, they kick you out in the world, and it's online, and like everybody's running around like a crazy person.
Yeah. The most common thing that people use to try to shoot it down is that they say it's technically infeasible, and it's not. Like,
well, I've seen that, and I've mentioned it in a couple places, and one of the things,
Microsoft Flight Simulator.
Yeah.
It's the whole world.
The whole world, yeah. Well, sometimes, I mean, obviously you can't do anything with it, but like, the pushback was both Pachter's always wrong. And the other pushback was
that's not always wrong. That's his reputation, though.
Right. The other pushback is that's been the rumor about the next GTA since like GTA 3.
I looked for that stuff for a month and couldn't find
Well,
any
once
of
San Andreas came, the rumors around 4 were that they were going to do GTA World, basically. And then they didn't. They just did Liberty City, obviously, which is boring. But there have been like a bunch of stuff, especially after San Andreas was like so much bigger than everybody thought it was going to be because it had 3 cities and like did all of California and part of Nevada, and like there's always been sort of this expectation that one day they were going to kind of put everything together again. And in the end, the game that really does that is American Truck Simulator.
You're right, though. That's funny.
But
here's the thing, though. It doesn't have to all be seamless and load.
No, obviously Miami is not going to be seamless with California. Like you're going to be able to load different areas.
You're going to load in the areas. I don't think anyone, well, some people must think this, but I don't think anyone rational.
Yeah, you're really looking at
thinks it is going to be one seamless.
Yeah, you're really looking at 4
huge maps that you load into, but with these new consoles, the loading could be like
one of which is already done.
Right.
Like, why would San Andreas need to be particularally different? Like, you'd probably add Vegas.
Yeah.
But why would that need to be particularly different?
Yeah.
And then, you already know, that's the other advantage is like, because I think he said, the source said it started in 2014 development.
That's the other thing. Some people are so dumb. So he says they started development in 2014. It's going to take 10 years. A lot of the people are on the Reddit thread particularly were like, oh, so you're saying the game's coming out in 2032? It's like, no. And then people are like. It's just, I can't handle the internet anymore. Maybe I've been spoiled being on Sifted where I don't have to go anywhere, but these people drive me insane. It's like, it feels like being in a loony bin when you're not crazy sometimes going out on the internet. Like literally, I would imagine what it feels like to be trapped in a mental hospital around people who are legitimately insane while you're completely straight and you have to deal with these insane people. It's just crazy. And it hasn't gotten better over time. Like, it's been this way forever, and I don't know if it's gotten worse.
Well, it has definitely gotten worse as kind of, especially, Reddit's part of that, where like you create these insular communities where you are never told you're wrong. Yeah. And that's part of the friction that's happening with the arguing over Elden Ring right now, is you're dealing with people who are in their From Software fandom bubble rubbing up against the people who are not all of a sudden. They
didn't know who I was. And they're like, how do you know this information? I'm like, it's not my information. I'm like, but I do know people at Rockstar. And they were like, no effing way do you know someone at Rockstar. Like, that's where they are. Because they put them on this pedestal that, like, nobody knows people at Rockstar.
Everyone knows Rockstar employees, only know other Rockstar employees.
Yeah, it's like, they wouldn't... I'm like, I've been a games journalist for 25 years. If I did not know someone from Rockstar by now, I would suck. Like, how incompetent would I have to be at my job to not know people at Rockstar after 25 years?
To be fair, the people I knew at Rockstar don't work there anymore.
Oh, well, I know people who still work there. And there are some people that I knew that aren't there anymore as well. And I still share stories from them sometimes.
I've never known anyone who was literally at Rockstar North, though.
Oh, you mean someone in Scotland?
In Scotland, actually working on that segment of the
like the developers.
Yeah. Like, I've known people from Rockstar New York who were in management and production and publishing and stuff.
Yeah,
but I've never known anyone who was actually a developer at Rockstar.
No, I don't either.
North.
I've never known someone who actually writes code. In Scotland. But does that matter?
Not really. That'd be a pretty good source.
It would be. Yeah. I don't think anyone has those sources.
Probably not.
To be honest with you. But they could not believe that I knew people from Rockstar. It didn't matter. I sent them to my Twitter. I'm like, look at my bio, dude. Like, I'm not pulling this out of my ass. And they just were not having it. It's just crazy.
Well, you should. That's happened to me in the past when I've gone on and tried to like correct people about G4 stuff, or like, especially when that video about the history of G4 came out, which was like a fun video, but a lot of it's wrong.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, that's not what happened. This happened. They're like, well, how would you know? I'm like, because I was literally there.
I lived it.
Like, I was like,
they think they know better than you.
Yeah, like no, X-Play was this. I'm like, no, X-Play was this. They're like, well, I'm like, I literally co-created the show.
Everyone's a freaking genius.
My name is on every single episode of that show.
Even though these people have never done anything, they know more than anyone about everything.
Well, that's like the car damage thing. Like, gamers will latch on to one explanation that sounds plausible, and then that'll last for 20 years. Like, that'll just be conventional wisdom.
Yep.
And as they say, it takes 10 times more effort to dispel bullshit than to say it.
Yeah.
So like once it's out there,
it's the hive mind.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you're right, because and that's what happened at Reddit last night. I just got piled on. It was me against the rest of them. And there's nothing you can do. You can't reply to all of them.
Well, also because they spend all their time on there sort of speculating about it and talking about every little
And when they're
tidbit,
wrong...
and it's like, oh, this is different than what we thought it was going to be, and so we can't accept it.
Yep. That's what happened.
So... But eventually they will reveal the game, and maybe it'll turn out to be exactly what Pachter says it is. And
those people will never...
No, that will never be acknowledged.
No. They'll be like, oh, I knew all along.
Well, that's what all the rumors have said for years about Grand Theft Auto games. So it's just finally they just did it. That's not a special thing to have known.
No, that's what they'll say.
That'll be the narrative.
Yeah. Oh, we knew, everyone knew that. We just didn't... We expected something bigger than that. Or whatever.
Well, it's pretty cool that they're doing all... I mean, they should have done a new city, too.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
well, they are. Well, kind of. London would be new.
London, I mean, they've done London before.
Yeah,
but
London, not
in the modern day, not in the 3D era,
and not also in full.
Yeah, I mean, London was decently sized in that expansion they did.
Yeah, that was just DLC though, right?
It was a separate expansion. It was no DLC then. It was a
right. That term didn't exist back then.
No, it was an Austin Powers expansion basically.
But look, you guys are entitled to your opinion, whether you think it's real or not. I mean, I do. I grilled Pachter over this. I gave him a huge window to bail on this, to be like, you know what, it's not worth it. Because I really thought at the end of the day, no matter what, it wasn't going to be worth it for him. And I love Pachter, and I didn't want him to have to deal with trolls and crap. And so I was like, look, we don't have to run this. I'd be an idiot not to, but we don't have to. Like, if you don't feel like dealing with the internet hive,
Matto Baxter says it'd be great to have an Asian city too, and I agree with that in design principle, but oh boy, do I not need to see Rockstar's satirical take on Asian stuff.
Oh yeah, that might not end up
well. I don't need any more of that.
Yep. Well, hopefully they've grown. Let's be honest. It's been a long time since Grand Theft Auto 5 was created.
I mean,
I really find it hard to believe that it'll have the same level of sophomoric humor.
Maybe.
And
I mean, look,
stereotypes.
So far, I mean, obviously not Red Dead. Well, sort of.
I mean, it is a satirical series.
I will be floored if this game does not have some horrible transphobic shit in it. Like, that's just Rockstar's bread and fucking butter, okay? If there's no bar full of, men dressed as women hanging around and that's the whole joke, is it a Rockstar game?
Yeah. I have a feeling that they may change. You got to realize also a lot of the leadership at the top has left there.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just one Hauser left there now. And Leslie, he's gone.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how much those guys were driving that stuff, but
that's a good question.
But the one Hauser was the lead writer, so
I mean, maybe
there could be some evolution.
They needed to evolve. They need to evolve.
Yes,
even when 5 came out, it felt a little archaic. Not even just in the sense of socially aware or wokeness or whatever you want to call it. The humor was
wasn't funny.
Was not funny, but it wasn't. Yeah. Everyone was doing that.
The jokes just weren't good.
Well, especially, I mean...
A good joke is a good joke. It doesn't really matter what the material is. Yeah.
I mean, at the very least, get Laszlo out of there. Talk about past its prime at that point. But
I don't want him to completely pasteurize the franchise.
No. But
part of it is that it has that edge.
But that's what I'm saying is the satire had no edge anymore. It was just it was
just dumb humor.
It was it was an off week of South Park at best. Mm-hmm. It was just okay, we're just going to be mean to people and call that satire. It's no, there's tons of stuff, especially now. GTA has always been sort of a satire or a parody of kind of American culture, and there's a lot more to parody and satire about American culture now that you couldn't before. If you really want to prove to me that you have the balls that you claim you have, you go straight at Trump, go straight at QAnon, go straight at this stuff that is so ridiculous and ripe for the taking, and show me you got some balls on you, and as opposed to just punching down at trans people or people who do yoga or some shit. Yeah. It's funny that people are vegan. Great. Put that in there. But also, you went after Trump back in GTA 3.
Did they?
He was the guy. One of the guys who you get Clump or whatever his name was. One of the guys you get missions from was a clear Donald Trump stand-in.
That's right. I forgot about that.
Because at the time at the time you were going to mock him because he was just a fixture of New York business. and sort of the pinnacle of excess and self-aggrandizement, and now you could go
anywhere,
all over the place. I mean,
plenty of material.
Frankly, the political situation in America is to the point that I think even if you're going to do this big connected world, like I think you have justification for creating a Washington D.C.
You may,
so you can just set stuff there.
Yeah.
Like you telling me Rockstar couldn't do something with the truck convoy?
Oh yeah, of course.
I mean, they would have a field day.
That'd be a great
with that.
mission. You could do a great mission.
Oh
with that
yeah.
Too. That'd be fun. Be like the new train mission from Uncharted 2.
Yeah, you want to talk about the new No Russian? Well, you play as you play as a MAGA guy.
Ooh.
One of your characters is one of those guys.
Oh boy.
How about that?
I don't know if that would go over well.
We want to do edgy, right? We want to be like, yeah, like that's how you. I mean, like Trevor. Like Trevor is a direct satire of how people play GTA.
Yeah.
You know?
It is. Yeah. Absolutely.
And he's a monster, and you're not. I don't think you're supposed to like Trevor very much.
No.
He's a psychopath.
Uh-huh.
You know.
Yeah.
But like, they did it. You know.
They can write characters very well.
They can do it. Yeah.
They can create characters like Trevor that you still have sympathy for somehow. But you're right. The writing has lost a little bit over the last. Really, just with GTA 5, honestly.
Yeah. GTA 5. I mean, like Red Dead 2 is better in the because Red Dead 2 isn't trying to like be too edgy. Red Dead 2 is not trying to be a shock jock.
No, it's just trying to.
It's just trying to tell a story.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think they pull that off.
And they nailed the setting and the time period and all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
you gotta make. That was probably one of the reasons it's taking so long to get GTA. You know, because like, you deliver. Yeah. Also, you're making money hand over fist on GTA Online, and you don't need to make GTA 6 until you have an idea worth making, frankly. Yeah. And if this is actually the idea, what Pachter's talking about, it kind of makes sense it took so long because they had to wait for the technology to catch up to it.
It's exciting, honestly.
I'd be into that. I mean, I like that idea.
I think it's brilliant if they can do it and pull it off. So I'm excited about it. I know some people are like, I don't believe it, blah, blah, blah. They don't want to get excited about it, but I do believe it. And if they can make that happen inside the game, it will change everything.
Yeah,
so,
I don't see why Pachter would go out on a limb on this for any other. I mean,
he had no reason to.
He clearly believes it's true.
Yes, believe me, he absolutely does. Again, I contacted him specifically 3 times since we recorded those episodes to give him an out. Like, hey, you still feeling okay about this information? You know, you still want to run it? Yep. I don't know why. He almost got annoyed after a while with me constantly asking him, like, you still want to run this stuff? I think he thought that I was starting to question him, and that wasn't the case at all. I just I wanted to protect him because I knew this was going to happen. I knew people were going to say, oh, it's for Pachter, and he's always wrong, which is total BS. He is right about so much crap, but nobody points that out. People always point out when he doesn't get something exactly right, and that's what makes the rounds on the message boards and on social media, and that's what people remember him for. So I tried to give him an out to protect him from all this because I knew he had no upside for doing it. Like, I think he was just trying to help us out, honestly. I think just in his heart, he's just like, so. I'm trying to do something for Sifted. Because he sees how hard I work, and he's just like, what the F? Where aren't you getting support from people? And I'm like, I don't know, dude. And I think he's just trying.
He's too old to care what anybody thinks anyway.
Yeah, he does not care. Like, I think he cares about his colleagues.
Oh, his colleagues and his friends and his sure. But but the world overall, like, you know.
No, he doesn't. So anyway.
You don't need to care about that stuff when you're on a boat.
That's true. That's a good point. So anyway, that's what happened with Grand Theft Auto 6, both across the interwebs. Nobody picked it up. Nobody. IGN didn't pick it up, GameSpot, any of them. Destructoid, nobody did. There was a couple small sites in Europe that picked it up. God bless them. And a lot of the sites that did not pick it up were the same sites that ran the fake story a week and a half ago when they got conned by that YouTuber who set up a fake Twitter account. Did you not know the story?
No.
So this YouTuber just did an experiment to see how much he could manipulate the press. And
I did hear a little bit
he started a Twitter account and just wrote like 500 tweets or whatever, just guessing at stuff that may happen in the future. Left it all private. And then as stuff would actually happen, the stuff that he actually got right out of the 500 guesses, he'd turn that tweet live. And so that tweet would be date stamped and time stamped. And people would be like, oh, crap. He predicted this like 2 weeks ago, and here it is in the new Nintendo Direct. And it got major publications. And I don't know if that's part of it. Maybe people are like on alert now because they're like, oh, we got burned by that YouTuber or whatever. I don't know. But it's interesting
But it's not like this is anonymous.
Right.
Or somebody with no reputation. I mean, bad reputation, good reputation, but it's not like the industry doesn't know who Pachter is.
Right, I know. And they just didn't pick it up. So, whatever. It is what it is.
I mean, sure, some of that is like the whole don't comment on rumors thing, but it's like
they do it all the time.
They do it all the time. Where was Kotaku on this one?
Well, I think they're on strike, actually.
Oh, that's right. They were.
I don't want to bring them up because they've been on strike and like actually out. So
right.
But a lot of the other guys, like I know they had to have seen it. Like,
yeah.
Maybe some of them didn't come.
But nobody even talked about it. Like none of the people I know, none of the people that I know or are friends with, like even mentioned it on Twitter.
I know. I mean, I could see it the number of like retweets and likes I got. So it is what it is. But just another missed opportunity. And you're right. Maybe someday people will be like, "Oh, wow, they were." Pachter was right, but probably not. More likely, he'll never get credit for it, and life goes on. So that's how it is. Okay, let's take some questions. I would say you probably shouldn't ask a ton of GTA 6 questions because I don't know.
There's not really anything else to say.
Yeah, I don't know anything else other than what was put in the story. I didn't withhold any information or anything, and I don't know if Pachter did. All I know is that everything that he told me about it, he okayed to be put into the story and into the video, and that's it. So I don't have any more information. If you just want to ask more general questions about the game, that's cool. Minority games, people suck. Not all people suck, man, but there are a lot of them. I'll say that, man. I've been really disappointed in humanity here over the last 24 hours. And again, not just pissed off at random people online. There's some people closer to home that I'm pretty upset with right now. Let's see what we got. Texture Glitch, thank you for Twitch Prime. That's awesome. LeSteve D, LeStevid, thank you for the Tier 1 subs, giving out to the community. JM Rain, as always, making it rain, living up to his name. Here's some questions. Any other Twitch Prime through here? Slagathor, I've been reading that subreddit, and none of those guys have any idea whatsoever how games are developed. I know. It got to the point where I was, like, going back and forth with them because they banned me, and so these guys are trashing me, and I can't reply because they banned me. And I'm like, oh, okay, you're going to ban me, so I just have to take basically this public like slander that I can't do anything about. It was weird. And then as I started chatting with like the moderator, he was the only person I could reply with. One, he ended up being a complete douchebag. And two, I realized he has no idea what he's talking about.
They generally don't.
Clue at all. And I was just like, this is pointless. And so I went on Reddit and I just turned off like the notifications. So I was getting emails every time one of those idiots was replying to me. So I just turned off the notifications and my life has been a lot better. Let's see. As always, go at Sifted Games. It makes it easier for us to find your questions. Estmont. Shane, given your en-masse reaction to Elden Ring and Horizon Forbidden West, and more importantly, to the scores most reviewers gave those games, do you think you guys are now counterculture reviewers? Interesting.
I don't know. I wouldn't like to think that game reviewing is a culture in the first place.
It shouldn't be.
No.
Yeah. It should just be a job.
Yeah.
There's some art to it, but mostly it's a job.
Yeah, especially because like that's sort of also like I refuse to be the Armand White of video game reviews. But I don't know. Like, I mean, it's not like I disagree that Elden Ring is really good. I just don't understand why it's so. Like, I've seen people that are like talking about like the discourse on that has been baffling to me, and I don't really get involved in it because I don't really care what people are thinking. And like, I do have kind of a guideline where it's like if the person on Twitter doesn't have enough followers to fill a movie theater, don't bother replying to them.
Yeah.
If it's like an argument thing. But I've seen the thing that baffles me is stuff like where people are like, "Oh, it's the most like meaningful open world exploration ever." Like, it's not like all those other open worlds where you're just like checking off a list. Like, you go places and like everything you find is worthwhile. And I'm like, really? Because I've been to like 7 catacombs with all the same gray textures, filled with all the same gargoyle enemies, where I fought a boss I fought 4 different versions of in the past to get an item that I will never ever use. Yeah. And that is just every open world thing I've ever. And look, I love open world stuff. I'm not saying that makes the game bad. I'm saying I enjoy that. But I'm also saying it's not any better or worse than what any other open world. If you think that's okay, why is it not okay to have a bandit camp or a checkpoint in Far Cry or whatever? Like, it's all the same copy pasted stuff.
It's just semantics.
Yeah,
that's really all it is.
And sure, you didn't have an icon leading you to it, but you can turn the icons off in Assassin's Creed and Far Cry too. So what's the difference? Like, I don't. And look, man,
that's the same argument as like, why does it bother you if there's an easy mode if you never touch
Right.
it? It's
Exactly.
the same logic.
Because then no one knows automatically that I didn't use the easy mode, and that makes my ego smaller.
Exactly.
So,
Ding,
and
ding,
then,
ding.
And then, like, on top of that, like, there's stuff where it's like, you know, oh, like, look, like, early on, yeah, it's fun to ride around the map and find stuff. Oh, there's a cave, what's in here? But I'm 100 hours in here, and I'm out of stuff that I do. And, like, at a certain point, I'm like, if I don't understand what they want me to do or where this, like, you know, the golden arc is pointing me, like, I don't understand what you want me to do or what this thing, where's this? I'm just going to look it up, or I'm going to look at the interactive map on the wiki, the Affects Your Life thing. And I'm just like, it's covered in icons like every Ubisoft map. And I'm just like, you know what? The only thing that Elden Ring has really reinvented here is smart glass.
Yeah.
I've just got a second screen now.
I think one thing that both of us probably agreed on about Elden Ring is that it wasn't held to task for things that other games are held to task for. In general.
All. Look, man.
Like the visuals, like, there's a bunch of stuff that other games would have been dinged for that this game was not dinged for.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And, like...
And this Zelda's and Nintendo stuff's a little bit like that at times, too.
Somewhat. Oh, yeah, but you know what? I think if Zelda came out with frame rate like that, it would get dinged.
I mean, Breath of the Wild's frame rate ain't great.
It's not, but like Breath of the Wild ran better on Switch and it was acceptable.
Yeah.
Also, Breath of the Wild, while it was not a tour de force visually, it did look better than any other Zelda game had. I think Elden Ring...
But it had no story.
No, but Elden Ring
the
also...
world was empty a lot
I mean,
of the time.
I will give Elden Ring this for sure. Well, not give it.
It doesn't have much of a story either.
I mean, it has a lot of lore.
Yeah.
I did think it was very funny that it basically turned out that George R.R. Martin wrote the backstory of the world and the gods and the setup, and then up until the shattering, basically, and then took his backstory and just applied cataclysms to it until it became Dark Souls again.
Yeah, I know. It is.
Like, it's very funny.
They managed to get it there in the end anyway.
And then just mad-libbed all the Dark Souls elements into, they're shards now. Okay.
Right.
I was talking to one of my friends about, like, helping, telling him, like, to do this or look for this item or whatever. It'll help what his build he's working on. And I'm like, and at one point I'm like, oh, well, he's like, what do you, people are like, oh, joking about, like, oh, do you want everybody to have, like, scout finders or whatever from Dragon Ball Z? I'm like, well, I do have that useless telescope thing, and I have over 9,000 shards. And he's like, what are shards? There's a man who's played this game like 20 hours.
Yeah,
and I'm like, souls.
He still didn't
It's just what souls are. It's what they call souls in this game. And it's like, oh, okay, I get it. I'm like
sometimes I feel like I'm alone among the games press in my feelings on From Software's games, and I am not actually. I watched one of IGN's podcasts, or multi-platform podcast, Game Scoop or whatever, and their whole staff is like me. Yeah. So I was like, okay, not all games journalists.
Most people are, and like there's this whole.
I know most people aren't, but I thought a lot of journalists were got in the wool from.
Most people. I think most journalists have an appreciation for them, but don't get in the. I mean, look, like this game has disrupted my sleep patterns. Like I am into this in a way that like I'm just continually thinking about it, and that'll end in like a week. I'll finish it and I'll get past it. So it's not like I don't get the obsession over these things, but it's like some people just chase that dragon over and over and will not play anything else or not get beyond it. And it's just like, yeah, they're really good, but it's like also there's a lot of flaws. Like the way these things are presented is in some cases is a questionable creative choice, and in some cases is objectively dumb. Like I'm sorry, the fact that the backing out of the map is not the same button as opening the map is stupid. And I actually saw someone on Twitter today say that it should be that way, because if you ever tried to open a map and close a map in real life, because closing a map is harder because you have to figure out how to fold it. I'm just like, go away.
All right, we got to get on to other questions because there's a bunch in here. That was a good one, though. Thanks, Ask Mont. That's hilarious. One Supermaster Gamer, do you think your content is too mature for the gaming industry? Feels like the most popular site influencers seem to get attention.
I think we're too old.
With consoles, wars, extreme takes, is gaming still an immature art form?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, the immature art form, I don't know about that, but it is an immature fan base.
Yeah, they don't...
It's telling to me that there's always pushback when I give my theory, which I'm pretty sure is fact, about why the 7 to 9 scale exists. which is like, so if you have a 10-point scale, how come everyone thinks everything under a 7 is bad? Whereas like there's a lot of other reviews, books and stuff, you give something a 5, people think it's average.
Right.
If you give something a 7 in gaming, people
That's
are like
average.
or maybe starting to be a little
average.
bad. Why? Because a 70 in American schools is a C-.
Yeah.
Because the fans of video games who read video game reviews are children in school.
But why?
So we applied the percentile grading system that we think of as what we get on a test.
But why haven't they done that for movies and books and stuff?
Because those industries and the consumers of those like criticism and reviews were adults.
Oh, okay.
Adults read movie reviews. I mean, I was a kid. I read movie reviews as a kid, but those were established as Consumer Reports resources for adults. Video game reviews were written for children, and over time, the culture, I hate to use it, but culture grew up around the idea that below 70 to a kid in school in the 90s was failing.
Yeah.
Or at least it was going to be failing if you brought that grade home to your parent. I'm obviously a D isn't failing, but no parent wanted to see that. But that is sort of the emblematic thing to me of like, yeah, it's immature in the sense of how it looks at things and considers things a competition. Also, the console warring thing came about because as kids, we couldn't afford all the video game consoles. So you had to convince yourself the thing you'd blown your money on was the right one. Yeah. So that's where console wars come from. That goes away as you're older and you have the money to, I mean, I don't know now, like the economic situation for the millennials is probably different. But once I had enough money as an adult to buy all the game consoles, I no longer cared about the console war stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, that's part of it. I mean, just in general, the hobby does skew younger. Now, you guys know.
Although not so much anymore. It's just...
Well, here's the thing.
But it's hard to shake that... it's 25 plus years of culture on that. Yeah, I hate to call it culture, but it is.
You guys have followed me and Sifted since we launched. Like, you know that I built Sifted for people like us. For, I don't want to say like middle-aged folks like Matt. Like, honestly, Matt and I are even a little bit older than the demographic I wanted to build Sifted for. But I did want to build it for adults. I mean, people who are rational and speak to each other with respect. Things like that. I wanted it to be heavily moderated so people felt safe and protected on the site. Blah, blah, blah. What we found, though, is that while there are a lot of people like that, people our age who really like games, they have too much other stuff going on. And that was also kind of the idea behind Sifted was, hey, these people are busy. They have kids. They have careers. They need to go someplace and have a 5-minute snapshot of what's going on in the industry, and then they need to get out.
Although we certainly, when we were younger, our generation certainly had its console wars.
Oh, for sure.
Such. But, like, yeah. I think that's... also, like, I think people like... there's a difference in depending on what you grew up reading. Like, you and I read more thoughtful game review people. Like, my game review idol is Andy Eddy. Right. Who wrote for Video Games Can Be Entertainment, but there's a lot of people our age. A lot of people our age who read Die Hard Game Fan, and that was a very different mentality to grow up reading reviews for.
Well, let me just stop you there. We read.
Well, yeah, there's that too.
We read reviews. There's a huge difference between reading a review and going on YouTube. And look, I'm not slagging people who do this. Like, there's an audience for it, and someone needs to supply this content. But it's low-hanging fruit to go watch some dude rage on camera for 18 minutes about some game. Like, it just is. And I consume frivolous media and frivolous pop culture too. I'm not completely immune to it. I'm not trying to say I'm better than everybody else, but we do tend to create more thoughtful, honestly mature content around games. And if you're asking me if I think there's a gigantic market for it, I do not. Like,
I think we've proven that.
I think we have proven it. Yeah. I mean, Pachter, well,
especially because like the prevailing, like the popular podcasts are just people gushing over stuff forever. Yeah. Like, there is no conflict.
It's not even just in games though. It's the same thing in sports. Like the people who just gush over the favorite team, that's the podcast that does well. Steelers fans. If you have a Steelers podcast where you are actually critical of the team, people hate you and people don't listen. The Rah Rah Cheerleader Steelers podcast, gigantic. Dudes are doing remote things at the local horse racing track casino every weekend and blah, blah, blah. It's just the way it is. Like, and at the same time, I don't want to hate on people who want stuff that's positive. Because I also want stuff that's positive, but more important than that
There's
to me...
There's a difference between positive and thoughtless.
And lies.
Yeah.
That's the difference. Like, I want things to be positive, but I also want them to be honest and truthful. And that's what we are. We're brutally honest and truthful about every game we talk about. You and I don't give a crap about what console it's on or any of that crap. And for the most part, who made it or anything. We just play the games, and we're like, this is what we think of them. And I do think that the audience is limited for that. I do think a lot of people just want cheerleaders.
They want reinforcement of what they
or they've already made up their mind, and because maybe they watched someone play it on YouTube already for 2 hours or whatever, and they've watched that, and they're like, I'm buying that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot.
And now we come on, and we're like, you might want to think twice about that. They're like, no, F you. I watched Joe Blow stream 2 hours of this, and I believe him.
Yeah, the one thing I will give the From fanboys is that I have never, I don't think in the history of reading Twitter discourse on video games, I don't think I've ever seen so many people make a pronouncement about the negative qualities of a video game and then admit they'd never played it yet.
No.
There's tons of people like, this thing about Elden Ring does this, and it's stupid and it shouldn't be that way. I haven't played it yet, but it really seems that way. And it's just like, okay, dude, like, what do you?
Well, that's where I draw the line.
Give me a break.
Yeah.
Like,
it's like if I played a bunch.
It's
of
like even if I agree with you, if you haven't
Yeah.
played it, what are you talking about?
Yep. Okay, let's move on. That was another great question. And we're spending like 10 minutes on each one of these because you guys are knocking it out of the park.
And we got time.
We do have a little time. That was a great question, though, Master Gamer. Ashes in the Hourglass. Just to exemplify what you guys were saying during the GT7 discussion, I'm 27. I've begrudgingly had a license since 2018, and I absolutely despise driving. There you go. Whenever anyone I know extols the importance of having a car, I just roll my eyes and ask, if transportation is so important, why don't we force the government to invest in more public transportation? I don't think there's a question there, but...
No, but it's a comment, but it's also 100% correct. Like, but the things...
Go to overseas.
Yeah, one of the things I'm
See
most
how
jealous
PT
about
works.
when I go to Europe is how good public... I totally see why you don't ever need to have a car in Europe, especially because of the gas prices there. I mean, look, to me, cars are important to me because to me they are freedom. They're when I was younger, they were my way to getting out of the house and doing what I wanted. Today, I really enjoy driving. I
do too.
Especially when I'm out
And that's
of the
why
city.
I bought a
and doing my own
decent
thing.
car when
Yeah.
I was making decent money.
Yeah, I have a lot of
and I
fun.
still have it. It's now like 11 years old, but
Yeah,
I
I drive for fun, for
Yeah,
sure.
I enjoy it. Yeah.
And I mean, driving in LA isn't very fun, but like,
Still, it can be fun.
it can be.
Like if you
yeah.
have a quick car, just going from stop sign to stop sign can be
you
fun.
can figure it
Like,
out. And every once in a while, like driving back from the old studio, like you're driving through traffic, but there's ways you can outsmart the traffic, and there's ways where there's a right lane on Olympic that nobody uses because when it's not commute time, there's people parked there, but also because people seem afraid of that.
They're
for whatever.
scared, yeah.
And I will just drive, not even breaking the speed limit. Like everyone else is going 10 miles an hour. I'm saying I'm going to go 35.
Makes you feel like you're going fast.
You feel like you're like racing down the autobahn, but it's like
Yeah.
no, you cut like tons of, and that's fun. Like it's like I mean, I understand people that get like nervous about driving and stuff, but like. I am rarely more relaxed than when like I've broken away from traffic and I'm just like cruising down the freeway. So yeah, that's one of the appeals of stuff like Forza Horizon is because that recaptures that feeling to me. But I totally understand people who don't have any interest in cars as having that, it's an extra expense. You're throwing money away for insurance and taxes every year and registrations, and God help you if you get in an accident and like the insurance premiums go up and you got to pay to repair things. I mean, I had to do that recently too. Mm-hmm. I've never hit anything, but I've been hit, and that sucks.
You've gotten a bad accident, actually.
Oh yeah, especially when they run away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like I get it, and like we should have more public transportation. I'm looking forward to being 70 years old and finally being able to take the damn subway they've been building here for 20 years.
It's absurd that our country keeps rejecting public transit and trains.
Yeah. I voted for the high-speed rail. I mean, the idea of being able to get on a train and get back to visit my mom in 3 hours in San Francisco, that'd be amazing.
Or get to Vegas and like, why don't they build a train to Vegas? It takes an hour and a half. There's nothing. You could literally just have 3 stops. Here, Barstow, which is in the middle,
Barstow,
Vegas.
So the drugs can take hold,
right?
And then just go straight through Bat Country until you get to Vegas.
That's great. Norix Nessie 94. Now with Forspoken being delayed, how much confidence do you have that God of War will come out this year? I mean, I don't know how they correlate to each other, but I mean, I'm pretty confident that both are going to come out this year.
Yeah, I don't think Sony's going to consider Forspoken a replacement in the schedule for God of War.
No, Well, I mean, it's not their game either. So.
No, yeah, it's just Square's.
Yeah.
Also, even if it was their game, look, I'm looking forward to Forspoken. I'm excited about it. Amy Hennig, like all this, it looks cool. Like maybe kind of like it has some Infamous vibes to it, which I dig.
Actually, that's a good point. It does. Yeah.
That's a Days Gone. In terms of your
the sales and stuff.
In terms of your sales and stacking and the scheduling, that's a days gone. It is not going to cannibalize a damn thing Kratos does.
Yeah.
Like,
and I do think God of War is coming this year.
Kratos is the 900-pound demigod gorilla of the current schedule. Like the only other thing they'd have that could displace it would be a new Uncharted or a new Last of Us.
Yeah. And I also think Forspoken's going to make it because they said in the delay that it's just for polish, which is good.
Yeah.
Also, I believe I have it on my fantasy team. So
you do.
So learning that they're going to spend 5 months just polishing the game.
Good. I like that.
I was happy about that. Dinky Do 15.
I'd really like that one to be good. So yeah. I think that delay. I mean, obviously, I'd like to play it sooner, but that delay is good news to me.
Yep. Dinky Do Matt gave like a 10 or 12-minute review of Batman at the beginning of the show, so you're going to have to wait for the archive to hear it. But Cliff Notes version, you really liked it.
I really liked it.
Yeah.
And I didn't think I was going to, because I didn't like the trailers at all. It just looked like generic Batman crap.
Yeah. Let's see. Do we have any other questions? LOL, PC gaming subreddit just deleted my post about the GTA scoop.
Yeah, they don't want to hear about
Rigor Mortis UK.
They don't want to hear about it. It's weird.
It is weird. Fred loves Joe. The category that Shane described.
I don't know. I could fill that in with a lot of words.
Yeah, three-letter word. I don't know what it is. It could be anything. A Fire Native says, we read video reviews. I don't know what that means. I'm partly at fault for the fact that you guys hardly ever read reviews.
The two of us kind of created video reviews. Yeah, like that was literally a thing we were assigned to do at one point.
Yeah, I think we're a little guilty of what has happened.
Like we were assigned, literally, you and me were literally assigned to create the engaging, like funny review,
how you
video
do that, review,
as opposed to the extended play stuff, which was very dry and informative, kind of car and driver sort of thing.
Honestly, most outlets though do what we did on extended play, which is very dry. And like,
well, because there's the difference between like the extended play was car and driver, and X play was Top Gear.
That's a good way to put it. That's a great analogy. Cody S. Carter, thank you for Twitch Prime, man. That's great. Noxatornitis. I rarely share the same opinions as you guys. Between both of us? Like, because Matt and I are pretty opposite on a lot of stuff. Like,
yeah, at some point,
how is it possible that you never agree with either one of us?
Yeah, that would be a very zen thing at some point.
What are the chances of that happening? But it's just interesting to hear different viewpoints from experienced people. I agree with that as well. That's why I listen to other gaming podcasts.
Yeah, it's also why I've always said, like, the, like I was growing up reading the San Francisco Chronicle, and they had the reviewer for Chronicle for as long as I've been alive, pretty much, has been Mick LaSalle. And I have never agreed with Mick LaSalle on a single movie review. But I would always read his reviews, because if he hated something, I knew I'd like it. And if he liked something, I knew to be wary of it.
That's just as
absolutely valuable. It is absolutely valuable criticism if I can formulate a relationship to what your tastes are and know how I relate to those. Like, that is just as valuable. I don't need to agree with a critic to have them provide a valuable service.
Consistent.
Yeah,
and you know what they like and they don't like.
That is why
information is valuable.
Right, and that is why the most important thing a critic can do is be honest consistently.
Yep.
Because otherwise, you can't get a bead on what someone thinks about stuff.
And honestly, that's the best thing an outlet can do as well. Like, that's how I ran editorial at Game Trailers. I was like, it was us and we. It wasn't I. Because when you start having I's, you start having outliers. And then suddenly you have this review that doesn't add up with the rest of the reviews. And people are like, wait a minute. I trusted you, and now I don't trust you anymore. Now your whole system is torn asunder. And so it was very important to me to have a consistency across reviews, so you knew if we liked something, whether you would know whether you were going to like it or not. Because you're like, I always disagree with Game Trailers reviews because they focus on this. Well, if we didn't like a game, then you knew you're probably going to like it. So,
and that's your evidence that, like, they aren't looking for information; they're looking for reinforcement.
Right. Exactly. Yep. Nailed it. All right, let's answer one or two more. We are actually now well over time. Actually, let's just answer one more. Grimshaw Rocks, thanks, Matt and Shane, for the hard work every week and putting on the best gaming show. You're welcome, man. Thank you for showing up and watching and supporting. Last one, Deadly Virus Evo. Any predictions for tomorrow's State of Play? Think we're going to see first God of War tomorrow, Matt?
That'd be nice. Maybe.
I think we'll see stuff like Stray. I wouldn't be surprised if we see another demo for that.
See some Stray. Is there something else coming in like the early summer that I'm forgetting about from them?
I don't think so. We might see gameplay, like raw gameplay of Ghostwire Tokyo, because that's coming soon.
Yeah, it's probably. I would imagine that's going to be the big focus.
Probably.
They got to finally talk about that.
Yeah.
Maybe some hints at Horizon DLC.
Maybe.
I'd like to see that. It might be wishful thinking on my part. But
God of War outside shot. I'm just shooting for the moon, just hoping that we see something.
Maybe something, like some kind of indication that we're going to see something.
Yeah, it could be. But I think it'll be...
Maybe some Forspoken. Just
possibly.
I'm sure there was something ready before it was delayed because it was about to come out in May or whatever. So
yeah, I think it'll be focused on stuff that's going to come out in the immediate term.
Yeah, first half of the year.
And I'm excited as hell to see stuff about Stray. I think that game looks awesome. We put it in a Pachter Factor episode last week, and we had several people on YouTube ask what the game was.
Is there a release window
for
for
that? Which
that
just showed them, like, you guys should be using Sifted. You would know what Stray is if you watched GameFace and use Sifted.
Is there a release window for that yet?
I believe so. I don't know the exact date, but it's coming, I think, for sure by the end of the year. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's not too far away. But they had no idea what it was. I'm like, yep, if you hung with us, you would know exactly what it was.
To be fair, I do tend to forget it exists.
What'd you say?
I do tend to forget that game
Stray?
exists. Yeah.
Oh, I'm really excited for that.
I am interested in it, but like it just leaves my mind.
Okay.
Probably because I don't have anywhere to put it in the year. I feel like it's going to come out in September.
Oh, Vincent says Stray is early 2022.
Early 2022. Yeah. I'll believe that when I see it.
I think we'll see something on it probably tomorrow, which is awesome. Game looks sweet.
Maybe it'll be sooner than
you guys don't know. It's a game where you play as a cat. Yeah, and it's like hyper realistic.
A cat with an AI backpack.
It's pretty awesome. I'm pretty excited for it. So anyway, enjoy the state of play tomorrow.
The focus is Japanese games.
Focus is Japanese games, and he says if there's a super big game, what happened to Final Fantasy 16?
I don't know.
It's gone underground.
There's still people that think that's coming out this year. I'm like, I don't know.
It kind of was supposed to.
Yeah,
but it probably ain't.
No, I think we'll be lucky if we see anything of it this year, but it might be what that is.
I mean, didn't they say that it was like feature complete already, like a year ago? I thought Square Enix said that.
He promised we were going to see it by the end of 2021,
yeah.
and then nothing, and then in January I think he basically said, "Yeah, sorry, we're totally going to show you something this year."
And here we are. Well, it is only March. We got time.
I'll be pretty shocked if that makes it.
I would be surprised if it was
that. I think the Forspoken delay to October is a pretty good indicator that Final Fantasy 16 is not this year.
That's a good point.
If anyone was silly enough to believe that it ever was going to be.
Yeah.
But I can't see that, especially since it's the Final Fantasy 15 team.
Yep.
So.
Okay. That's it for GameFace 292. Thanks to all you guys for hanging in the chat, asking great questions all the way to the end. It's good to talk a lot of games in an episode. We've been just doing kind of topics for a long time with like one or maybe two games. And I think that's probably going to continue here for the foreseeable future. There's a lot of good stuff coming out.
Like even stuff that already came out that I just haven't gotten to, like Shadow Warrior 3.
Yeah, I haven't touched that either.
Yeah.
Yep. So we'll have another great episode for you next week. As always, if you like what we're doing, head to patreon.com/sifted and drop us a pledge. You can also always help us out with Twitch Prime. If you're watching on YouTube, the instructions to do that are down in the description. If you've already linked your Amazon Prime account with your Twitch account, all you got to do is click twice to give us a free $2.50 every month, and you do have to re-up it, and that does suck. And I have lobbied Twitch to have them change it, but unfortunately they won't. So I know, it's so annoying. I don't know why they won't do it. It seems like it would be easier for them as well, but anyway.
I love that. Eviloni5 says, would love to see Deep Down appear at the State of Play.
Oh,
it's
wow.
like, oh, man, if you had money on that in Vegas, you would win a lot.
That's a deep
if
cut.
that showed up.
Yep.
Jesus.
But we are supported 100% by Patreon. So again, patreon.com/sifted. You may just be listening to this on Stitcher, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, what else? All of them. We're out on all of them. If you're listening to this show out on any of those, hook us up. If you're getting a lot of enjoyment out of the show every week, why not at least give us $1 a month? It all adds up and makes a difference for us. So on behalf of Matt, I'm Shane. We'll see you next Tuesday at twitch.tv/siftedgames. GameFace is up and out.